If you enjoy digging beneath the surface of these ancient beliefs, exploring the human fears and hopes that shaped entire civilizations, and you want to help us keep uncovering these stories, maybe consider supporting the channel. Even a small contribution helps immensely with acquiring research materials and keeping this project going. But as always, please know there is absolutely no pressure to do so. The most important thing is simply that you are here, joining our growing community from all around the globe, ready to settle in and listen. It is genuinely amazing to see how far these stories travel, connecting people across continents and time zones through a shared curiosity about the past. Knowing these narratives are being heard worldwide is a fantastic feeling, so please feel free to drop a comment letting us know where you are listening from tonight. It is a great way to feel that connection. Alright, it is time now to properly settle in for our journey tonight. Turn down the lights wherever you happen to be listening, dim your screen, and make your space as calm and quiet as possible. Allow yourself to get comfortable, whether you are nestled in a favourite chair, reclining on the sofa, or already lying down in bed, preparing for sleep. Take a slow, deep breath, in through your nose, feeling your lungs fill completely, noticing the slight pause at the top, and then let it all go. A long, slow exhale out through your mouth, consciously releasing the accumulated tension of your day, letting your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, and your muscles soften. We are not here tonight for a fast-paced lecture filled with complex genealogies or obscure hieroglyphs. We are just here to take a slow, immersive, sensory walk through a belief system that governed life and death for millennia, in a world that is now long, long gone. We are going to push past the romanticized images of peaceful afterlives and vengeful mummies, to find the deep-seated fears, the meticulous preparations, and the perceived dangers associated with the journey into the realm ruled by the Lord of the Dead. We are looking for the cursed tombs of Osiris. You are dying. It is not a sudden event, but a slow fading. The heat of the Egyptian sun feels less warm on your skin. The sounds of the village, the shouting children, the braying donkeys, the rhythmic thump of grain being pounded, seem distant, muffled. You lie on a low wooden bed, covered by a simple linen sheet. Your family surrounds you, their faces etched with a mixture of grief and anxious urgency. Death is not merely an ending. It is the beginning of the most critical and perilous journey you will ever undertake. Everything your culture has taught you revolves around this moment and what comes next. The terrifying passage through the duat, the underworld, towards the final judgment before Osiris. Failure is not an option. Failure means oblivion, the ultimate horror, to cease to exist entirely. The pressure on you, even in your weakened state, and more acutely on your surviving family, is immense. They must do everything correctly. Your eldest male relative leans close, his voice low but firm, reciting the necessary protective formulas, urging your your soul, often depicted as a human-headed bird, to remain near, to not abandon the body prematurely. A female relative gently washes your face with cool water from the Nile, murmuring prayers to Isis, the great mother goddess, wife of Osiris, known for her potent magic and protective power. The air in the small mud brick room grows thick with the smell of incense. Frankincense, perhaps, burned in a small pottery censer to purify the space and ward off malevolent forces believed to gather around the dying. You feel a profound sense of detachment, observing the scene almost as if from outside yourself. Your physical senses dull, but your internal world, shaped by a lifetime of stories, rituals, and beliefs, becomes intensely vivid. You picture the path ahead, the dark river you must cross, the gates you must pass, the demons you must appease. The weight of Ma'at, cosmic order, truth, justice, feels palpable. Have you lived a life worthy of joining Osiris in the field of reeds? Have your sins, recorded meticulously by Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, outweighed your virtues? The anxiety is a cold knot in your fading consciousness. You see images flicker, Set, the chaotic brother who murdered Osiris, lurking in the shadows, representing the forces that seek to disrupt your passage. You recall tales of Amit, the devourer, part crocodile, part lion, part hippopotamus, waiting hungrily beside the scales of judgment to consume the hearts of the unworthy. This is not a peaceful drifting off. It is the terrifying countdown to the ultimate trial, a final exam for which your entire life has been the preparation, and the stakes are eternal existence versus absolute annihilation. Your family's correct performance of the rituals is your only hope now. The last breath leaves your body. A collective sigh, a fresh outburst of wailing fills the room, but grief must be channeled quickly into action. The clock is ticking. Your body, now an empty vessel, is vulnerable. It must be preserved meticulously, perfectly, mirroring the preservation of Osiris himself after his dismemberment by Set. This is not mere sentimentality, it is a theological necessity. Your car, your life force, your spiritual double, needs the recognizable anchor of your preserved body to return to receive offerings, to exist. Your bar needs it as a home base from which to journey out into the world and the duat. Without the preserved body, your afterlife is impossible. The embalmers, the priests of Anubis, the jackal-headed god who oversaw mummification, are summoned immediately. You, or rather your empty form, are carried from your home to the Wabet, the pure place, the embalming workshop, usually located on the West Bank, the land of the setting sun, the land of the dead. The air here carries the sharp, acrid, unmistakable chemical stench of natron, the natural drying salt, which hangs heavy even outside the low buildings. Inside, the process begins. It is messy, invasive, and profoundly physical, a stark contrast to the spiritual journey you are believed to be embarking upon. The brain is removed, crudely, often through the nose with a long hook, then discarded as unimportant stuffing. An incision is made in the left flank, and the internal organs, liver, lungs, stomach, intestines, are pulled out, washed in palm wine, dried with natron, and placed in their respective canopic jars, each guarded by one of the 4 sons of Horus. Only the heart remains within the body cavity. It is the seat of intellect, emotion, and memory, the very record of your life that will be weighed against the feather of Ma'at in the Hall of Judgment. It must stay. The now empty torso is then packed with linen bags full of natron, and the entire body is buried completely in a large pile of the dry crystalline salt. There it lies for 40 days, the natron relentlessly drawing out every drop of moisture, desiccating the flesh, preventing decay. This period mirrors the time Isis spent searching for the scattered pieces of Osiris's body. It is a time of transformation, a necessary ordeal. The brutal reality of this sacred process is chemical dehydration, performed with ritual solemnity, but grounded in the practicalities of preservation in a hot climate. The aim is to create an enduring shell, a statue of your former self, capable of housing your spirit for eternity. After the 40 days of drying in natron, your body is removed from the salt pile. It is shrunken, leathery, brown, almost unrecognizable, but preserved. The temporary natron packing is removed from the cavity. The body is then washed again, perhaps anointed with fragrant oils, cedar, myrrh, to restore some suppleness and mask the lingering chemical smell. The empty torso is carefully restuffed, not with organs, but with clean linen, sawdust, sometimes resins, or even onions, to restore a more lifelike shape and volume. The incision in the flank is sewn shut, often covered with a protective plate bearing the Eye of Horus. Finally, the meticulous wrapping begins. Hundreds of yards of fine linen strips, supplied by your family, are wound around the body, layer upon layer. Amulets, carved stones believed to possess protective magic, are tucked within the folds at specific locations, intended to guard you against dangers in the duat. Priests recite spells continuously throughout the wrapping process, imbuing the bandages with magical power. A portrait mask, perhaps idealized but recognizably you, is placed over your head and shoulders. You are now a mummy, a sealed, protected, ritually potent vessel, ready for the tomb. While your body undergoes its lengthy transformation in the Wabet, your family is frantically busy preparing your eternal home, your tomb. This is not simply digging a hole in the ground. It is constructing a machine for eternity, a fortified bunker designed to protect your body and house everything your car might possibly need in the afterlife. The scale and complexity depend entirely on your social status and wealth. For a high official, it might be a multi-roomed structure cut deep into the rock cliffs of the Theban necropolis. For a simple farmer, it might be a modest pit grave in the village cemetery. But the fundamental purpose is the same: protection from chaos, from Set, from the forces that seek to undo creation and prevent your rebirth with Osiris. The tomb must be provisioned. Furniture, beds, chairs, chests, replicas of your earthly possessions are placed inside. Food and drink, jars of beer, wine, grain, dried meat, fruit, are stocked, intended to magically sustain your car. Tools you used in life, games you enjoyed, perhaps even beloved pets, mummified to accompany you. For the elite, the walls of the inner chambers are covered with intricate paintings and carved patterns, not mere decoration, but potent magical spells, maps of the duat, lists of offerings, scenes depicting your successful judgment and entry into the field of reeds. These images are believed to become real for your car in the afterlife. The level of detail, the sheer amount of labour and resources poured into even a moderately wealthy individual's tomb is staggering. And then there are the protective measures, the source of the later legends of curses. The tomb is designed with false doors, hidden passages, deep shafts filled with rubble, all intended to confuse and deter human robbers. But the primary defences are magical. Spells are inscribed near the entrance, invoking the wrath of the gods, Osiris, Anubis, Thoth, upon anyone who would dare to disturb the deceased's rest or steal their provisions. These are not Hollywood curses involving reanimated mummies. They are dire warnings, promises of divine retribution, perhaps sickness, madness, or misfortune in this life, and eternal damnation in the next. To the ancient Egyptians, who deeply believed in the power of the spoken and written word, these were terrifyingly real threats, the ultimate deterrent backed by the Lord of the Underworld himself. The tomb is sealed, a fortress against time and chaos, awaiting your arrival. The day of the funeral arrives. Your mummified body, now encased in its decorated coffin, or perhaps multiple nested coffins for the very wealthy, is placed on a funerary bark, a boat-shaped sled. A long procession forms, moving slowly from the east bank, the land of the living, cross the Nile towards the West Bank, the land of the dead. Your family walks alongside, dressed in mourning attire. Professional mourners, mostly females, perform their ritualized grief, wailing, tearing their clothes, throwing dust. Priests carrying incense burners walk ahead, purifying the path. Porters struggle under the weight of the tomb furnishings, the chairs, the boxes, the jars. Everything needed for your eternal comfort. It is a noisy, smoky, emotionally charged parade. A public affirmation of your status and your family's devotion. The procession reaches the entrance of your prepared tomb. The heavy coffin is carefully lowered from the sled and stood upright before the sealed doorway. Now, the most crucial ritual must be performed, the opening of the mouth ceremony. A specialized Kerheb priest, the lector priest who knows the ancient words, steps forward. He holds the sacred implements, the adze, the serpent head tool, the calf's leg tool. He begins the long, complex chant, reciting the magical formulas designed to reanimate your senses, to allow your mummy to breathe, speak, see, hear, and eat again in the afterlife. He touches the mouth, eyes, ears, and nose of the coffin mask with the ritual tools at specific points in the recitation. Your family watches with intense concentration, their hope for your eternal future hanging on the correct performance of this very moment. They believe that without this ceremony, your mummy would remain an inert statue, your car and bar trapped, unable to function in the duat. The lector priest's actions are seen as literally restoring your ability to live again, albeit in spiritual form. It is the vital activation sequence for the afterlife machine. Once the ceremony is complete, the coffin is carefully maneuvered down the narrow passageway, through the corridors, and placed within the sarcophagus in the burial chamber. The tomb furnishings are arranged around it according to tradition. The priests back out, reciting final protective spells. Then, the masons move in. They block the doorway with heavy stones, plastering over the entrance, sealing it against the outside world. Your journey into the darkness begins. You, your bird-like soul, now embark on the perilous journey through the duat. This is not a gentle ascent to heaven. The Egyptian underworld, as depicted in texts like the Book of the Dead, is a terrifying, complex and dangerous landscape. You must navigate dark caverns, rivers of fire and gates guarded by monstrous demons armed with knives. At each stage you must know the correct passwords, the secret names, the magical spells needed to appease the guardians and pass safely. Your tomb paintings and the papyrus roll buried with you serve as your guidebook, your magical GPS through this treacherous realm. You face trials and challenges designed to test your purity and knowledge. Failure at any point could mean destruction or eternal torment. The journey is filled with potential horrors drawn from the Egyptian understanding of the world. Giant serpents block your path. Lakes boil with fire. Demons with terrifying composite forms, part animal, part human, part nightmare, threaten to tear your soul apart. You must prove your worthiness constantly, demonstrating your knowledge of the sacred formulas and your adherence to Ma'at throughout your life. You might encounter hostile spirits, the restless dead, who failed their own judgment, seeking to drag you down with them. The psychological weight of this believed journey, the constant threat, the need for perfect knowledge, the fear of monstrous entities, must have been immense, a powerful motivator for living a righteous life and ensuring the correct funerary preparations. This is the brutal reality of the path to Osiris. It is an ordeal, not a guarantee. The climax of your journey through the duat is the weighing of the heart ceremony, presided over by Osiris himself, seated on his throne as Lord of the Underworld. You are led into the vast Hall of Two Truths by the jackal-headed Anubis. Before Osiris, Isis, Nephthys, and 42 divine assessors stands a great golden scale. Anubis places your heart, the physical heart left in your mummy, representing your conscience and the record of your deeds, on one pan of the scale. On the other pan he places the single white feather of Ma'at, representing truth, order, and righteousness. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods, stands ready with his palette to record the verdict. This is the moment of ultimate judgment. You must then recite the negative confession, a long list of sins you claim you have not committed during your lifetime. I have not stolen. I have not murdered. I have not lied. I have not blasphemed. You address each of the 42 divine assessors by name, proclaiming your innocence of specific transgressions. As you speak, the scale balances. If your heart is lighter than, or equal in weight to, the feather, if you have lived a life predominantly in accordance with Mayat, then you are declared Ma'akeru, true of voice. You have passed the test. Osiris welcomes you into the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise, a perfected version of the Nile Valley, where you will live eternally in bliss. But if your heart is heavy, weighed down by sin, deceit, and violations of Ma'at, it will sink the pan on the scale. Thoth records the unfavourable verdict, and waiting hungrily beside the scales is the terrifying creature Amit, the devourer of the dead, a monstrous composite of crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus, the most feared animals of the Egyptian world. She lunges forward and consumes your heavy heart. This is the ultimate doom. Your soul is utterly destroyed. You cease to exist. You are condemned to eternal oblivion, denied rebirth, wiped from the cosmic record. The fear of this specific moment, this final, terrifying judgment, was perhaps the greatest curse of all, shaping the ethical and ritual behaviour of Egyptians for millennia. Not all threats to your eternal rest come from the demonic guardians of the Duat. A far more tangible and historically prevalent threat comes from the living, tomb robbers. From the earliest dynasties, the immense wealth buried with the pharaohs and nobles, gold, silver, precious stones, fine linens, imported oils, proved an irresistible lure. Tomb robbery was not just petty theft. In the Egyptian worldview, it was a profound act of sacrilege, a direct assault on Ma'at and the cosmic order that Osiris represented. To break into a tomb was to violate the deceased's eternal home, to potentially damage the mummy, and to steal the provisions needed for the Ka's survival. It was seen as siding with Set, the god of chaos, against Osiris, the god of order and rebirth. The state took tomb robbery extremely seriously. Necropolis guards, the Medjay, patrolled the sacred valleys, particularly the Valley of the Kings. Watchtowers were erected, entrances were sealed and hidden. Yet the robberies continued, often perpetrated by the very workers who built the tombs, the ones who knew the secret layouts, the weak points, the locations of the filled-in shafts. Sometimes even corrupt officials or priests were involved, driven by greed or, in later periods of state collapse, by desperation. The recorded confessions of captured tomb robbers reveal harrowing details. Tunnels dug, sarcophagi smashed open, mummies torn apart in the search for hidden amulets. This was the ultimate desecration, the ultimate disruption of the carefully planned journey to Osiris. The curses inscribed in the tombs were aimed squarely at these potential violators. While we often imagine them as magical traps, their primary function was psychological deterrence, playing on the deep-seated religious beliefs and fears of the populace. An inscription might read something like, "As for any man who shall enter this tomb in impurity, I shall wring his neck as a bird's. Osiris shall judge him. His name shall not endure. His line shall cease to exist." These were not empty threats to the ancient Egyptians. They believed implicitly in the power of the written word and the vengeance of the gods. The curse invoked the ultimate punishments, physical suffering in this life, and oblivion or torment in the next, presided over by the very god whose sacred space was being violated. The real curse was the crippling fear of divine retribution, a powerful, invisible guardian of the dead. Osiris himself embodies the fundamental cycle of life, death and rebirth that governed the Egyptian world, a cycle most powerfully manifested in the annual inundation of the Nile. Just as Osiris was murdered, dismembered, and then miraculously reassembled and resurrected to rule the underworld, so too did the land of Egypt seem to die each year during the hot, dry season. The fields lay baked and cracked
under the relentless sun, the world seemingly barren and lifeless. This was the time of Set's triumph, the dominance of chaos and sterility. The people waited anxiously, scanning the southern horizon, performing rituals, praying for the return of the life-giving waters, for the return of Osiris's power.
And then it would come. The river would begin to swell, turning brown and turbulent, rising higher and higher until it spilled over its banks, flooding the narrow floodplain. This was the Akhet, the season of inundation. The floodwaters brought not destruction, but life, a thick, black, incredibly fertile layer of silt, washing away the salts of the previous year, renewing the land. This was seen as the symbolic return of Osiris, the triumph of life over death, fertility over sterility. The flood was his potent essence, impregnating the land just as he impregnated Isis to conceive Horus. The entire agricultural cycle, the foundation of Egyptian civilization, was understood through the lens of the Osirian myth. The people endured the flood season, living on higher ground, their villages transformed into temporary islands, their world reduced to water. They waited patiently for the waters to recede, leaving behind the miraculous black soil. Then came the frantic season of ferrying, emergence, when the fields were ploughed and sown, the seeds entrusted to the fertile earth blessed by Osiris. Finally came Shemu, the harvest season, the culmination of the cycle, the bounty provided by the resurrected god. This annual rhythm of death and rebirth, mirroring Osiris's own story, was woven into the fabric of Egyptian life and belief. Dependence on Osiris was total, not just for individual rebirth in the afterlife, but for the collective survival of the entire civilization through the life-giving flood he commanded. The river's behavior was a constant source of both profound relief and deep anxiety, its fluctuations directly linked to the favor or displeasure of the lord of the underworld. The tombs of Egypt, therefore, were far more than just burial places. They were complex machines designed to navigate the treacherous transition from this life to the next, interfaces with the realm of Osiris. The so-called curses were not arbitrary magical traps, but expressions of a deep-seated fear of chaos and oblivion, attempts to invoke divine justice against those who would disrupt the sacred order of death. They reflected a profound belief in Mayat, the cosmic balance that Osiris upheld, and the dire consequences of violating it. The fate of Osiris, his death, dismemberment and resurrection, provided the ultimate model for every Egyptian, offering hope for eternal life, but also underscoring the dangers that lay on the path. The brutal reality underlying the entire Osirian belief system was the stark human fear of death and the desperate need for assurance of continuity. This fear fueled the massive expenditure of resources on tomb building and mummification. It drove the meticulous performance of rituals. It shaped ethical behavior through the looming threat of the final judgment. The tombs, in their silent, stone-bound complexity, stand as monuments not just to pharaohs and gods, but to the enduring human struggle against non-existence, a struggle played out under the watchful, judgmental eyes of Osiris, Lord of the Dead. The greatest curse was perhaps not found inscribed on the tomb walls, but resided within the hearts of the living, the ever-present anxiety about their eternal fate. The priests who guarded the tombs. We have this image of Egyptian tombs, particularly those in the Valley of the Kings, sealed sacred spaces protected by divine power and fearsome curses. We picture dedicated priests, solemn guardians maintaining eternal vigilance, ensuring the pharaohs rested undisturbed for millennia. We think of priesthood as a purely spiritual calling, focused on prayer, ritual, and unwavering protection of the dead against any defilement. But the brutal reality is that guarding the tombs was often less about mystical wards and more about mundane bureaucracy, complex logistics, and, during Egypt's long periods of decline, a deeply compromised relationship between protection and plunder, sometimes involving the priests themselves in the systematic dismantling of the very treasures they were sworn to protect. The line between guardian and gravedigger could become terrifyingly thin. If you've stayed with me through this first story, I'm glad it's brought you a moment of peace. If you'd like to help this little community of ours keep growing, a simple like or subscribe is always appreciated. And I'd still love to know where you're listening from. It's been wonderful seeing voices from all over the world join in. Alright, let us prepare properly now to delve into the world of the ancient necropolis. Turn down the lights wherever you might be, dim your screen, and allow your surroundings to become calm and quiet, free from distractions. Let yourself get truly comfortable, sinking into your chair, melting into the sofa, or perhaps already lying down in bed, ready to let the story carry you towards sleep. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, feeling your lungs expand fully, noticing the stillness at the peak of the breath, and then release it all with a long, slow sigh, out through your mouth, consciously letting go of the thoughts, worries, and tensions of your day. Feel your shoulders relax, your muscles soften, your mind begin to quiet. We are not here tonight for a dense academic lecture filled with complex chronologies or obscure priestly titles. We are simply here to take a slow, immersive, sensory walk through the lives and duties, both sacred and profane, of those tasked with overseeing the cities of the dead in ancient Egypt. We are going to push past the image of the solemn, incorruptible guardian. We are going to find the dusty ledgers, the broken seals, the emptied sarcophagi, and the difficult choices made in times of crisis. We are looking for the priests who guarded the tombs. You are a priest, but your temple is not the grand, bustling complex at Karnak. Your domain is quieter, dustier, lonelier. You're a car priest, attached to the funerary cult of a wealthy noble buried perhaps 50 years ago on the Theban West Bank. Your primary job is the eternal maintenance of his soul, specifically his car, the life force that resides in the tomb and requires sustenance. You stand before the false door carved into the outer wall of his tomb chapel, a solid stone representation of a doorway, believed to allow the noble's car to pass through from the burial chamber within to receive offerings. The sun beats down on the pale limestone, the air thick with heat and the silence of the necropolis, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. You carry a small basket containing the daily offerings, a few loaves of bread baked in the temple kitchens this morning, a small clay jar of beer, a bunch of onions. You carefully arrange these simple items on the flat stone offering table positioned directly in front of the false door. You pour a libation of cool water from a small flask onto the stone, watching it quickly evaporate in the heat. Then you begin the chant. You recite the offering formula, the age-old words designed to magically transform this physical food into spiritual sustenance. Secum, that the noble's car can consume. Your voice sounds small and thin in the vast silence of the desert cliffs. You perform this ritual every single day, year after year. It is repetitive. It is often performed alone. You rarely see the noble's descendants. Perhaps they live far away. Or perhaps, after 2 generations, their direct connection has faded. Yet the endowment made by the noble upon his death continues to fund your position, providing your own rations of bread and beer in exchange for this perpetual service. After reciting the formulas, you stand silently for a time, allowing the car to partake of the spiritual essence of the offerings. You swat absently at a persistent fly buzzing around your shaved head. You gaze out over the shimmering landscape, the green ribbon of the Nile Valley in the distance, contrasting sharply with the barren, orange cliffs surrounding you. You inspect the tomb chapel itself. Part of your duty is basic upkeep. You notice the wind has blown sand into the small open-air courtyard. You see a bird has begun building a nest in a crevice high up on the wall. You make a mental note to bring your reed broom tomorrow, and perhaps a stick to dislodge the nest. Maintaining the purity and order of the sacred space is paramount. You also check the seals on the actual entrance to the burial chamber, usually a separate, hidden shaft or doorway leading down into the rock. You run your fingers over the hardened mud plaster, verifying the stamped impressions, perhaps the jackal of Anubis or the insignia of the necropolis administration, are still intact. Any sign of disturbance, a crack in the plaster, a damaged seal, must be reported immediately to the necropolis overseers. Protecting the physical integrity of the tomb, safeguarding the mummy and the grave goods within from robbers, is as crucial as providing the offerings. You are not just a caterer for the dead. You are also, in a very real sense, the first line of security, the lonely watchman stationed at the border between the living and the eternal. The seals look secure today. You gather your empty basket, bow towards the false door, and begin the hot walk back down the dusty path towards the river, ready to return again tomorrow. You are a different kind of priest operating within the complex bureaucracy that managed the vast cities of the dead. You are a seshked, a scribe of the necropolis, an administrator tasked with inventory and inspection. Your office is not a grand temple hall, but a small, functional mud brick chamber within the administrative complex near the edge of the necropolis, perhaps at Medinet Habu or Malkata. The room is hot, filled with the dry, dusty smell of aging papyrus rolls stacked high on wooden shelves lining the walls. Sunlight streams in through a high, slitted window, illuminating swirling dust motes in the air. You sit cross-legged on a mat, a wooden writing board resting across your lap. Before you are your essential tools, a stone palette with cakes of black and red ink, a small water pot, a selection of fine reed brushes, and a fresh roll of papyrus. waiting to be filled. Your current task is processing an inspection report from a team of necropolis overseers who have just surveyed a series of older, non-royal tombs in a remote section of the cliffs. An assistant reads aloud from a rough preliminary report scrawled on an ostracon, a flake of limestone used for temporary notes. His voice drones on in the quiet room. Tomb TT 382. Entry passage partially collapsed due to water seepage. Seals on inner door appear intact. Recommend stabilization work before next inundation season. You dip your finest brush into the water, then into the black ink cake, carefully noting the tomb number and the summary of the findings onto your fresh papyrus sheet, using neat, precise hieratic script. You make a separate note in red ink regarding the need for repair crews. The assistant continues. Tomb TT383. Outer courtyard filled with wind-blown sand, offering chapel walls show significant fading of painted plaster. False door intact. Burial shaft entrance seals. Here his voice hesitates, shows signs of possible disturbance. Recommend immediate investigation. Your hand pauses above the papyrus. This is the entry that requires careful attention. You make a clear notation, again using red ink for emphasis. TT383. Seals compromised. Urgent inspection required. You underline it twice. A potentially looted tomb is a serious matter, not just because of the loss of wealth, but because it represents a failure of Ma'at, a disruption of the cosmic order you are sworn to uphold. It also reflects poorly on the administration responsible for safeguarding the necropolis. You spend your days managing these meticulous records. You track the allocation of resources for ongoing funerary cults, how much bread, beer, incense, and linen is delivered to each tomb chapel each day, ensuring the endowments are properly fulfilled. You file reports from the Medjay guards detailing nightly patrols and any suspicious activities observed. You process requests for materials from the embalming workshops, natron, linen, resins, oils. You maintain inventories of tools used by the tomb construction crews, noting losses or damages. You are not battling demons or chanting powerful spells. You are immersed in the mundane, yet absolutely essential paperwork that keeps the entire complex machinery of the afterlife running, at least on the administrative level. The brutal reality of guarding the dead often involves less mystical vigilance and more meticulous record-keeping. You reach for the next ostracon, ready to transcribe another dry report into the permanent archive. Today, your duties take you out of the dusty office and into the necropolis itself. Following up on the report of disturbed seals at tomb TT383, you have been assigned to lead a small inspection team. You are accompanied by 2 stonemasons carrying heavy wooden levers and chisels, and a Medjay guard armed with a sturdy wooden staff for security. You walk up the familiar winding paths into the silent hills of the West Bank, the sun already beating down fiercely. The air is still and dry, smelling only of hot rock and ancient dust. You finally reach the designated tomb, its entrance partially obscured by drifted sand, just as the preliminary report indicated. The small open-air courtyard is indeed neglected, the painted scenes on the chapel walls faded by centuries of sun and wind. You approach the sealed entrance to the burial shaft, located beneath a layer of paving stones in the courtyard floor. The heavy stone slab covering the shaft is still in place, but the mud plaster sealing the edges is clearly damaged. The official clay seals, once sharp and clear, are broken, crumbled. Someone has been here. Your heart sinks slightly. It is always disheartening to find evidence of violation. You instruct the stonemasons. Carefully, using their levers, They pry the heavy stone slab upwards, revealing the dark, vertical shaft plunging down into the earth. A blast of cool, stale, musty air rises to meet you, carrying the scent of deep dust and something else. The faint, dry, papery smell of decay. You light an oil lamp, its small flames sputtering in the slight draught. Holding it carefully, you begin the slow, cautious descent down the rough-cut steps carved into the shaft wall. The Medjay guard follows close behind, his staff held ready, peering into the shadows. The stonemasons wait above in the sunlight. The air grows cooler and damper as you descend. The silence absolute, except for the sound of your own breathing and the scuff of your sandals on the steps. You reach the bottom of the shaft. A low doorway, also once sealed, but now clearly forced open. Broken chunks of plaster and shattered clay seal fragments litter the floor, leads into the burial chamber proper. You hold the lamp high and step inside. The scene confirms your fears. The tomb has been robbed, likely long ago. Wooden chests lie splintered and empty, their contents looted. Pottery jars lie smashed on the floor, their contents, likely grain or wine, long gone. The mummy itself, or what remains of it, has been dragged partially out of its stone sarcophagus. The heavy granite lid lies askew, pushed aside with immense effort. The linen wrappings of the mummy are torn and shredded, pulled apart by robbers searching frantically for valuable amulets hidden within the bandages. Small fragments of bone and dried tissue are scattered on the dusty floor. It is a scene of desecration, of chaos triumphant over order. You feel a mixture of sadness and professional frustration. Your role as a scribe of the necropolis includes documenting such violations, assessing the damage, and arranging for the tomb to be resealed, however empty it may now be. You carefully begin your inspection, dictating notes to an assistant scribe who has followed you down, or perhaps making mental notes to record later. Lid of sarcophagus displaced. Mummy heavily disturbed. Wrappings torn. Amulets likely removed. Multiple pottery vessels broken. Contents of wooden chests looted. Evidence suggests robbery occurred in antiquity, possibly during the periods of unrest. You systematically catalogue the destruction, the cold, bureaucratic language masking the underlying violation of sacred space. You must also arrange for purification rituals to appease the disturbed spirit and reconsecrate the site, another task falling under priestly jurisdiction. Guarding the tombs sometimes means documenting their failure. It is a much later period now. Egypt is fragmented, its central authority weakened, its wealth diminished. The grand tombs of the New Kingdom pharaohs in the Valley of the Kings, theoretically protected by their secrecy and the might of the state, have proven vulnerable. Robberies are rampant, sometimes allegedly involving the very officials and priests meant to be guarding the necropolis. The state coffers are empty. The temples are struggling to maintain their vast estates and perform the necessary rituals. In this era of decline and desperation, a new, morally ambiguous interpretation of guarding the tombs begins to emerge among some factions of the priesthood, particularly those associated with the powerful temple of Amun at Karnak. You are a high-ranking priest involved in these difficult, secret discussions. The argument, whispered behind closed doors in the temple administrative chambers, is pragmatic, even cynical. The ancient pharaohs are long dead. Their tombs have already been violated, their treasures partially plundered by common thieves. Is it not better, some argue, for the remaining wealth, the gold from the coffins, the valuable resins, the overlooked precious metals, to be officially reclaimed by the temple, by the representatives of the gods on earth. This wealth could be used for legitimate purposes, to pay the unpaid Medjay guards, ironically to perhaps actually secure the remaining tombs, to buy grain to feed the temple staff and dependents during times of famine, to repair the crumbling temple structures, to maintain the essential daily rituals for the living gods. It is framed not as robbery, but as necessary reallocation, a liquidation of dormant assets for the good of the current religious and political order. You are part of an official yet clandestine expedition entering the Valley of the Kings. You are not sneaking in like common robbers. You arrive with authorization, perhaps bearing a decree countersigned by the High Priest and a compliant local official. You proceed to one of the violated royal tombs, perhaps that of a once mighty pharaoh like Thutmose IV or Amenhotep III. The entrance is already open, the seals long broken. Your team enters the dusty, debris-strewn corridors, carrying lamps and tools. You reach the burial chamber. It presents a scene of chaos similar to the noble's tomb you inspected earlier, but on a grander scale. Smashed sarcophagus fragments, overturned funerary furniture, scattered remnants of grave goods missed by earlier thieves. Your task is presented as one of pious restoration and protection. You are here, officially, to rescue the sacred royal mummies from further desecration. Your team carefully, reverently, lifts the damaged coffin containing the pharaoh's mummy, or perhaps just the mummy itself, if the coffin is too damaged or already stripped of its gold overlay. You transport it carefully to a nearby tomb, KV-35, the tomb of Amenhotep II perhaps, which has been designated as a secure workshop and temporary holding area. And here, behind closed and guarded doors, the real work begins, under the guise of inspection and restoration. You and other priests begin to carefully unwrap the ancient royal mummy. This is done ostensibly to assess its condition, perhaps to repair damage done by robbers, and to record any identifying marks or remaining amulets. But the primary, unspoken purpose is recovery. As the layers of millennia-old linen are painstakingly removed, you meticulously search for and collect any remaining valuables tucked within the wrappings. Small golden amulets the original thieves missed, inlaid pectorals, rings still on the mummy's fingers, sheets of gold foil adhering to the skin. These items are carefully documented, not as stolen goods, but as sacred objects being transferred to the temple treasury for safekeeping. This safekeeping, everyone involved understands, will likely involve the temple's goldsmithing workshops and furnaces. The ancient, sacred treasure, bearing the names and images of long-dead pharaohs, will be melted down into anonymous, untraceable ingots of gold and silver. These ingots will then enter the temple's economic bloodstream. They will be used, perhaps quite pragmatically, to pay the wages of the very Medjay guards who failed to prevent the tomb robberies in the first place. They will be used to purchase grain to sustain the temple workforce. They will be used to keep the vast, complex, and now struggling institution, the very heart of Egyptian religious and political life in this fragmented era, from collapsing entirely. It is a desperate measure for desperate times, sanctioned sacrilege disguised as pious administration. You are, in effect, managing a state-sponsored recycling program for sacred artifacts. The long-dead pharaoh, stripped bare, has made his final posthumous donation to the temple's operating budget. Once all valuables have been meticulously removed from the mummy, you and your team perform the next step of the process. You take the now bare, vulnerable mummy of the great God King. You carefully rewrap him, not in the original, lavish hundreds of yards of fine royal linen, but in new, clean, but significantly coarser and plainer linen, supplied by the temple workshops. Any remaining amulets are simple, functional ones, perhaps made of faience rather than gold. You then find a simple, unadorned wooden box, a plain coffin, perhaps originally intended for a minor official, or even hastily constructed for this purpose. You carefully place the re-wrapped pharaoh inside this anonymous container. You take a reed brush and a pot of black ink. On the lid, or sometimes directly on the mummy's new shroud, you make a few quick identifying marks. A docket noting the pharaoh's name, perhaps the date of this re-wrapping and reburial. The identification is often cursory, sometimes even inaccurate, made in haste by scribes working under difficult conditions. The priority is processing the body and moving on to the next. Then, under the cover of darkness, your team carries this plain wooden box containing the mortal remains of a once mighty ruler back out into the valley. You proceed not to his original, plundered tomb, but to another location, a secret, specially prepared hiding place. It might be a deep, unmarked shaft cut into the valley floor, or perhaps an older, previously emptied tomb, like KV-35, or the tomb of the priest king Pinagem II, DB 320. You carefully lower the plain wooden box down into the darkness. You place it unceremoniously on the floor of the hidden chamber or corridor. He is not alone down there. As your lamp illuminates the space, you see other plain wooden boxes already stacked haphazardly against the walls, or lying in rows on the floor. A dozen of them, maybe more. Over a period of years, your clandestine priestly commission has systematically gathered up an entire dynasty, perhaps multiple dynasties, of god-kings and their families from their violated tombs. You have collected them, meticulously stripped them of any remaining portable wealth under the guise of inspection, re-wrapped them plainly, and then hidden them en masse in one or two secret, unmarked holes in the ground. This becomes known, millennia later, as the Royal Mummy Cache. Officially, you have saved these sacred bodies from further desecration by robbers. You have provided them with a secure, albeit humble, final resting place. You have performed a great service to the memory of the ancestors and the continuity of kingship. Unofficially, you have also finalized the robbery yourself, efficiently extracting the last ounces of value for the benefit of the living temple state. The lost treasure is not truly lost. It has been liquidated, recycled, absorbed back into the struggling economy. You, the priest sworn to guard the tombs, have become the ultimate, most efficient and state-sanctioned gravedigger of them all. You supervise the resealing of the cache entrance, ensuring its location remains a closely guarded secret, known only to a few high-ranking priests. Your grim work here is done, for now. Now you stand as a scribe priest within the hidden cache itself, perhaps years after the initial reburials. The air is cool, still, and thick with the dry, slightly sweet scent of ancient linen, wood, and resin. By the light of flickering oil lamps, you meticulously perform your administrative duty. Your task is to create an inventory, a definitive record of the rescued royalty housed in this secret place. You move slowly along the rows of plain wooden coffins, examining the ink dockets scrawled on the lids or shrouds. You carefully transcribe the names and titles onto a fresh roll of papyrus, creating an official ledger of the displaced dead. Here lies Rameses the Great, stripped of his golden glory, in a simple box. Next to him, perhaps, his father Seti I, equally diminished. Further down, Thutmose III, the great conqueror, now just another name on your list. You note the condition of the coffins, any signs of damage, the occasional inaccuracies in the original dockets made during the hasty reburials. Your work is precise, bureaucratic, strangely detached, given the historical gravity of the names you are recording. Even in this secret repository of violated kingship, the administrative machinery of the temple priesthood continues its relentless documentation. The ledger provides a stark, material counterpoint to the grand narratives of eternal rule inscribed on the temple walls outside. The irony of your task is not lost on you, though you would never voice such thoughts aloud. You are a priest dedicated to Ma'at, the cosmic order. Yet your very presence here, cataloguing these rehoused, stripped-down pharaohs, is testament to Ma'at's disruption, to the triumph of chaos and necessity over eternal preservation. The priests before you, perhaps even colleagues you know, made difficult choices in a time of crisis. They preserved the physical bodies, the essential vessels for the car and bar, while simultaneously liquidating the material wealth intended to sustain them. Was it a betrayal? Or was it a pragmatic act of triage, sacrificing the gold to save the essential core, both of the mummies and of the collapsing state? The papyrus reveals no easy answers, only lists of names and locations. You continue your meticulous recording, guarding the final secret of the tombs, their emptiness and the clandestine consolidation of their occupants. The priests who guarded the tombs were thus a varied group, whose roles shifted dramatically over Egypt's long history, reflecting the changing fortunes of the state itself. In prosperous times, like the New Kingdom, they included the dedicated K-priests, performing endless offering rituals at tomb chapels, ensuring the deceased's eternal sustenance. They included the meticulous scribe priests managing the vast necropolis bureaucracy, tracking endowments, inspecting seals, and recording inventories with bureaucratic precision. They included the overseers who liaised with the Medjay guards, tasked with the physical security of the sacred valleys, though their effectiveness varied greatly. These were the guardians in the idealized sense, maintaining the infrastructure of the afterlife according to prescribed rules. But in times of decline, internal strife and economic collapse, particularly during the late New Kingdom and Third Intermediate Period, the role of the priestly guardians became far more complex and compromised. Faced with rampant tomb robbery, unpaid guards, and the desperate financial needs of the temples and the state, some high-ranking priests became agents of dismantling. Under the guise of protecting the royal mummies from further desecration, they organized the systematic stripping of remaining valuables from the violated tombs. This state-sanctioned plunder, framed as the recovery and safeguarding of sacred materials for the temple treasury, represented the ultimate betrayal of the original intent behind the elaborate burials. These same priests then orchestrated the clandestine reburial of the stripped and plainly re-wrapped royal mummies in secret caches, hiding the evidence of both the original robberies and their own efficient recycling efforts. They became the final guardians, not of the tomb's wealth, but of the physical remains themselves, huddled together anonymously in unmarked holes. The meticulous scribes then documented these caches, creating inventories of the displaced dead, the ultimate bureaucratic footnote to centuries of plundered glory. The brutal reality is that the priests sworn to guard the tombs were, at different times, caretakers, administrators, security managers, detectives documenting sacrilege, and finally, the most efficient and authorized liquidators of the very treasures they were meant to protect for eternity. Their story mirrors the long, slow decay of the pharaonic state itself, a descent from divine order into pragmatic survival. the labourers of the Valley of Kings. We have this image of the Valley of the Kings. We picture this silent, sacred, hidden place, a wind-swept canyon of golden rock where nothing moves. We imagine golden-faced pharaohs, resting in perfect, sealed, untouched tombs for thousands of years, surrounded by glittering magical treasures, all just waiting for one lucky archaeologist to open a door and find Wonderland. We see it as a final resting place, a place of profound, eternal, and absolute stillness. But the truth is, the Valley of the Kings was almost never silent. For half a millennium, it was one of the busiest, loudest, and most crowded industrial parks in the ancient world. It was a construction site. It was hot, it was dusty, and it was crawling with workers. And it was almost never sealed. It was a complex, working, and constantly accessed part of the Egyptian state. A place of intense, grinding, and repetitive manual labour. The labourers were not just the males who dug the tombs. They were the males who built them, the males who supplied them, the males who guarded them, and, most frequently, the very same males who emptied them. We are not here for a lecture. We are not here for a list of dynasties or pharaohs. We are just here to take a slow walk through a world that is long, long gone. We are not just looking for the kings. We are looking for the other residents of the valley. The ones with calloused hands, limestone in their lungs, and a very pragmatic working-class relationship with eternal life. We are looking for the labourers of the Valley of Kings. You are hot. That is the first thing you register. It is not the clean, baking heat of the open desert sun. It is a thick, choking, indoor heat. The air is solid. It is a wall of limestone grit that coats your tongue, clogs your nostrils, and stings your eyes. You are kneeling in a tunnel, deep in the belly of a limestone cliff. This is the Valley of the Kings, but it is not a silent, sacred place to you. It is your office. You are a stone carver. You are, in modern terms, a construction worker on the most exclusive, high-stakes, and secretive project on Earth. You are part of the Par Demi, the village. The workman's village, which today we call Deir el Medina. It is a planned community, a walled compound dropped in the middle of nowhere, in a barren bowl in the desert hills. It exists for one reason, and one reason only, to build the tombs. You and the other artisans, the plasterers, the painters, the carpenters, you are state property. You are the most valuable and most dangerous collection of males in Egypt. You know the secrets. You know where the god kings are buried. You know the layouts. You know where the doors are. So, you're watched. You live in a gated community. In fact, you live in the first gated community. The walls are high, and the single gate is manned by Medjay guards, the desert patrol. You are an elite artisan, true. You are paid in the best bread, beer, fish, and vegetables from the pharaoh's own stores. You are, by the standards of the day, comfortable. But the guards are not there to protect you from the outside world. They are there to protect the outside world, and the pharaoh's secrets from you. You are a state secret, a walking, breathing liability. Every morning, long before the sun is high, you gather with your gang. You walk out of the village gate in a long, shuffling line of males. You begin the long, hot trek. It is not a pleasant stroll. You walk up and over the high, sharp limestone cliffs that separate your village from the valley. It is a grueling, uphill climb, a steep and winding path of loose scree and sharp rock. You do it every single day, and every single day your calves burn, and the sweat soaks your linen kilt before you even arrive. The Medjay guards walk with you. They walk at the front of the line and at the back. They watch you. They make sure no one wanders off. You arrive at the high crest of the cliff. You look down into the valley. It is not a silent, wind-swept place. It is a work site. It is loud. You can hear it before you see it. The tap, tap, tap of 100 chisels, the thud of wooden mallets, the scrape of rubble being hauled in baskets, the distant shouts of a foreman. The air smells of dust, of sweat, and of the sour, oily smoke from dozens of sesame oil lamps. This is your office. You are a gravedigger, but you are not digging a 6-foot hole. You are carving a subterranean palace. You are a member of the left side gang, or the right side gang, the two teams that work on the tombs simultaneously, one tackling the left wall and one the right. You pick up your tools. They are not magical. They are not advanced. Your chisel is a small, soft copper blade, hafted into a wooden handle. Your mallet is a heavy, rounded piece of wood, worn smooth by your grip. This is the technology that builds eternity. Copper and wood. You walk down the sloping, dark corridor of the new tomb. It is lit only by small clay lamps that cast a weak, greasy, flickering light. The smoke is awful. It coats the low ceiling in a black, oily soot. It coats your skin. It fills your lungs. You find your spot at the end of the tunnel, the rock face. You and the 5 other males in your team get to work. You hold the copper chisel against the white limestone. You strike it with the wooden mallet. Tap, tap, tap. A small white chip of rock flies off. Tap, tap, tap. This is your entire day. This is your entire life. You're a human termite, slowly chewing a hole in a mountain. The limestone is hard. The copper is soft, unbelievably soft. Your chisel blade goes blunt in minutes. The edge rolls over, dull and useless. You stop. You shout. A younger male, a tool carrier, comes running up the dark tunnel. He takes your blunt chisel. He gives you a sharp one. He runs back up the dark tunnel to the entrance where a forge is set up. A smith spends his entire day just heating and hammering the edges back onto the chisels. You take the new chisel. You find your spot. You brace yourself. Tap, tap, tap. The dust is a constant white cloud. You tie a piece of linen over your mouth, but it does nothing. It is a gesture, not a filter. You can feel the grit in your teeth. You can feel it in your lungs. You cough. It is a deep, dry, hacking cough that brings up white dust. Everyone in the valley has it. It is the sound of the worksite, the permanent anthem of your profession. You are not an artist. You are not a priest. You are a digger. You are the brute force. You are the muscle. You are drenched in sweat. The air in the tunnel does not move. It is a hot, dark, dusty, and unbelievably loud box. The sound of the mallet striking the chisels is deafening, echoing off the low rock walls, vibrating in your bones. You are carving an eternal palace for a god-king, and it is the most grueling, grinding, and repetitive job you can possibly imagine. You are a labourer. You are a gravedigger, and you have months, maybe years, of this one tunnel ahead of you. You are not a digger. You are the one who makes the digger's work possible. You are a toolsmith. You do not go into the deep, dark, choking tunnels. You have a different kind of heat, a different kind of smoke. You sit at the entrance to the tomb, in the blinding desert sun. In front of you is a small, portable forge, a simple clay-lined pit. A younger male, an apprentice, stands beside you, working the bellows, a pair of large goatskin bags that he pumps rhythmically, pushing a stream of air into the charcoal. Your world is a small, intense circle of orange light. Your job is a constant, frantic race against the softness of copper. The tool carriers keep coming, running out of the dark, their faces pale with dust. They drop a handful of blunt chisels at your feet. The metal is warm. You pick one up. The edge is completely rolled, useless. You thrust it into the heart of the glowing coals. You wait. You watch the metal until it glows a dull red. You pull it out with a pair of wooden tongs. You place the hot copper tip on a flat, heavy stone anvil. You raise your hammer. Clang, clang, clang. You are not shaping a new tool. You are just hammering the edge, hardening the metal, beating it back into a sharp, flat blade. Sparks fly, stinging your bare chest. The sweat pours off you, evaporating instantly in the combined heat of the forge and the sun. You work fast. Your arm is a blur of motion. Hammer, turn, hammer, turn. You are a machine, one part of a larger machine. You dip the hot chisel into a pot of water. A violent hiss, a cloud of steam. The tool is sharp. You toss it onto the pile of finished chisels. You grab the next blunt one. You thrust it into the fire. This is your entire day. You are the linchpin of the entire operation. Without you, the diggers stop. Without the diggers, the tomb stops. Without the tomb, the pharaoh has no afterlife. You are, in a very real sense, the IT support for the Egyptian state. Your job is to keep turning the chisels off and on again. Or perhaps you are not the smith. You are the hauler. You are the muscle, the human conveyor belt. You are not a skilled artisan, and you are not paid as one. You are a labourer. Your tool is a basket, woven from reeds or palm fibre. Your job is to move the mountain. The diggers, deep inside, chip away at the rock. The white limestone fragments fall to the tunnel floor. Your team, a group of strong young males, goes in. You do not have shovels. You scoop the rubble into your baskets with your hands or with flat pieces of pottery. You fill the basket. You lift it. It is heavy. You settle the rough woven rim onto your shoulder, or you balance it on your head, a coil of linen protecting your skull. You begin the walk. You are hunched over, navigating the low, dark, sloping corridor. The air is foul with smoke and dust. You pass the diggers, the tap, tap, tap ringing in your ears. You pass the tool carriers running back and forth. You are the slow-moving traffic in this underground highway. You walk up out of the darkness into the blinding white-hot sun. You walk to the edge of the cliff. You dump your basket. A small cascade of white rock and dust tumbles down the slope. You are adding to a vast man-made mountain of limestone chips, the negative image of the tomb you are carving. You turn around. You wipe the sweat from your eyes. You adjust the pad on your head, and you walk back down into the dark, hot, noisy hole. This is your day. This is your life. Up and down, in and out, in the dark, into the light. You are moving a mountain, one basket at a time, for the sole purpose of making a hole in another mountain. The logic is, to your modern mind, absurd. But to you, it is a job. It is food. It is your entire world. You do not question the pharaoh. You just lift the rock. You are a labourer, an essential, aching, and utterly exhausted cog in the great machine of eternity. The diggers are done. The hole is carved. The haulers have carried the last basket of rubble out into the sun. The smiths have packed up their forges. The tomb is a cave. It is a long, sloping, rough-hewn tunnel leading to a series of rectangular pockmarked rooms. The walls are uneven, scarred by 10,000 chisel marks. The corners are rounded. It is functional, but it is not a palace. Your job is to make it a house. You are a plasterer. You are, in effect, a high-end drywall installer for a client who will never, ever see the work. You come in after the diggers. Your job is to hide the rock. You are not working with dust. You are working with water. You and your team haul in sacks of gypsum. It is a fine white powder, mined from the desert. You mix it with water in large pottery vats, right there in the tomb. You stir it with wooden paddles. It becomes a thick, white, smooth paste. The smell is clean, sharp, and chalky. It is a welcome change from the sour, oily smoke of the diggers' lamps, though your own lamps are just as smoky. You take your tool, a flat wooden trowel worn smooth by your hand. You scoop up a heavy glob of the white, wet, cool plaster. You approach the rough limestone wall. You spread it. Scrap. It is a long, satisfying, dragging sound, the sound of order being imposed on chaos. You work the plaster into the cracks, into the deep gouges left by the chisels. You smooth it. You step back. You look. Your overseer, a male with a keen eye, comes. He runs his hand over the wet surface. He looks at it in the flickering lamplight. He shakes his head. It is not smooth enough. You sigh, but you do not argue. You scrape the plaster off. You apply it again. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Your job is perfection. The walls must be as flat and as white as a fresh sheet of papyrus. Why? Because after you come the artists. You are creating the canvas. You are making the perfect white geometric box, deep underground, that will house the spirit of the God King. This is not a rustic farmhouse. This is the eternal palace. You work for weeks, smoothing, scraping, re-smoothing. You're not just on the walls. You're on the ceiling. You are lying on your back on a wooden scaffold, a rickety-looking thing made of poles and planks. You are spreading the plaster above your head. The wet, white gypsum drips onto your face, into your hair, down your arms. It is cool at first, but as it dries, it becomes tight and itchy. You are covered in it. You look like a statue, come to life. You are meticulous. You are patient. You are an artist in your own right, an artist of the flat surface. The flickering, greasy lamplight is your enemy. It casts deceptive shadows. You are trying to make a perfectly flat, white surface in the dark. It is an impossible job, but you are a master. You feel the wall with your palms, trusting your sense of touch more than your eyes. You feel for the slightest ripple, the smallest imperfection. Your humour is dry. You are an interior decorator. Your client is a mummy. He has very exacting standards, or so you're told. He will never complain about the work, but the gods might, and that is a complaint you do not want to receive. So you smooth the plaster. You make it perfect. You are creating a pristine, white, silent, smooth-walled series of rooms. You are building a blank page, deep in the earth, waiting for the story to be written. Finally, you are done. You have created the canvas. You are a scribe. You are a master of the line. You are not a digger, not a plasterer. You are an artist, a draftsman. You come in after the plasterers have left, after the white walls have dried to a smooth, chalky finish. The tomb is silent, a series of white, blank boxes. Your job is to map out eternity. You do not just start painting. This is not a place for artistic freedom. This is a place of sacred mathematical precision. You bring in your tools, a papyrus roll containing the master plan, the approved designs for the tomb. You bring string, a small pot of red ochre, mixed with water. You bring a ruler, a wooden stick with the measured marks. You and your team of scribes unroll the papyrus. You study the layout. This wall is for the journey through the underworld. This wall is for the pharaoh making offerings to the gods. You begin. You dip your long string into the red ochre. You and another male pull it taut against the vast white wall. You pull the string back and you snap it. Thwack. It leaves a perfect, thin, red horizontal line. You do it again. And again. You create a perfect, large-scale grid. This grid is everything. It is the scaffolding of divinity. The pharaoh must be this many squares high. The god Anubis must be this many squares wide. The hieratic scale is absolute. You work for days just snapping red lines, creating a vast mathematical skeleton across every wall and ceiling. You are a high-stakes draftsman. A mistake here, a line that is not perfectly level, a square that is not perfectly square, throws off the entire composition. It could render the sacred texts unbalanced. It could displease the gods. Your hand must be steady. Your eye must be true. Now you take a reed brush. You dip it in black ink. You begin to draw the outlines. You are not being creative. You are, quite literally, painting by numbers. You are connecting the dots, following the red grid. You draw the outline of the pharaoh's eye, the curve of his crown, the outline of the god's kilt. Your hand cannot shake. A mistake is not an option. You cannot erase plaster. You cannot paint over it easily. A mistake means the plasterer has to come back, scrape the wall, and replaster the whole section. The shame, the delay, it is unthinkable. Then you come in. You're a painter. Your job is to colour inside the lines. You are not a master scribe, perhaps. You are an artisan. You have your palette. It is a simple wooden board or a flat piece of stone. You have your cakes of pigment, black from soot, white from chalk or gypsum, red and yellow from ochre dug from the desert, blue from ground minerals, or from the expensive synthetically made pigment that is an Egyptian specialty. You grind the pigments. You mix them with a binder, maybe plant gum or egg white, to make paint. You have your brushes. They are made from reeds, the ends chewed to just the right softness, to different widths. You dip your brush in the black paint. You carefully, with a steady hand, paint the black outline of the pharaoh's eye, following the scribe's red line exactly. Then you take the red. You fill in the colour of his skin. Flat, perfect, specified colour. You take the blue. You fill in the stripes on his headdress. You take the white. You fill in his kilt. You are not painting your feelings. You are not capturing a landscape. You are, in a very real sense, a human printer cartridge. You are applying flat, specified colours to pre-drawn outlines. It is a job of intense focus and mind-numbing repetition. For months you are in this silent, white-walled, lamplit tomb. The air is still, hot. The lamps are still greasy, still smoky. You are careful not to let the soot stain your fresh paint. You are creating a vibrant, colourful, perfect and totally rigid world. This is not a picture of the world as it is. It is a picture of the world as it should be, forever. The pharaoh is young, strong. The gods are present. The offerings are abundant. You are painting a machine, a magical engine to power the pharaoh's afterlife. And you are doing it in a colouring book. A divine, high-stakes, permanent colouring book, deep underground. The tomb is finished. The diggers have dug. The haulers have hauled. The plasterers have plastered. The painters have painted. The burial chamber is a perfect, colourful, silent room, waiting for its occupant. And today, he arrives. You are not a worker from the village. You are a priest. You are part of the vast, solemn and incredibly loud procession that is moving from the river, up the wadi, to the Valley of the Kings. The smell is overpowering. It is a thick, sweet, woody cloud of myrrh and frankincense. The incense burners are working overtime. The smoke is designed to purify the air, to please the gods, and, pragmatically, to mask the other, less pleasant smells of a large, hot, sweating crowd and the processes of preservation. The sound is a wall of grief. You hear the high-pitched, ululating wail of the professional mourners. These are females, hired for the funeral, who are experts at the public performance of sorrow. They cry. They tear at their simple blue-dyed robes. They throw dust on their heads. They beat their chests. It is a loud, chaotic, and required part of the ceremony. It is the sound of the state demanding that the world grieve. In the centre of this cloud of sound and smoke is the mummy. He is not in a simple box. He is in a massive, gilded shrine placed on a sled and pulled by teams of large, slow-moving oxen. Behind him, another sled, and another, and another. These are loaded with the treasure. The gilded chairs, the alabaster jars, the stacks of painted wooden boxes, the dismantled chariots, the jars of wine, beer, and honey, the beds with legs carved like lions. This is not a quiet, respectful funeral. It is a moving day. It is the single largest, most expensive U-Haul rental in the ancient world. You are, in effect, moving the God King from his earthly house to his eternal one. And he is, bringing all his furniture. He is not a minimalist. The procession arrives at the tomb entrance. The hole in the ground, now beautifully painted, but still a hole. The mummy is taken off the sled. The priests, chanting in a low, nasal monotone, perform the final rituals at the doorway, the opening of the mouth. A senior priest, holding special carved tools, gently touches the mouth, eyes, and ears of the mummy case. He is activating the senses. He is turning the body on for the afterlife. Then, the hard part. The workers, not the priests, but the labourers, the movers, begin to move the massive sarcophagus down the steep, narrow, sloping corridor. It is a slow, grinding, terrifying job. They use thick papyrus fibre ropes. They use sweat. They use brute force. They have laid wooden runners on the floor, slicked with mud or oil. You can hear the scrap of the stone box on the wood. You can hear the grunts of the males, the sharp, chanted commands of the foreman coordinating the pull. They get it into the burial chamber. They place it. Then, the rest of the stuff. The furniture. The food. The boxes. The room is packed. It is not a serene, open space. It is a storage unit. It is piled high, floor to ceiling, with all the items the pharaoh will need. It is a divine game of Tetris, fitting a 5-bedroom palace worth of belongings into a 1-bedroom subterranean apartment. The priests file in, perform the last rites in the cramped space. Then they back out. You and the other priests stand at the entrance. The ceremony is over. The god is in his house. The movers are wiping their sweat. And now a new labourer arrives. You are a mason. You are from the village. You are not part of the ceremony. You are the clean-up crew. You are the bouncer. Your job is to close the club. You have your trough of wet gypsum plaster. You have your stack of pre-cut limestone blocks. You are building a wall. You lay the first block in the doorway. You slap plaster on it. You lay the next block. Scrape, thud. Scrape. You are sealing the tomb. You are walling the God King in. You are the last person to see the inside of that room. You are the one who knows exactly where the door is, how thick the wall is. You work quickly, efficiently, block upon block. The hole gets smaller. Finally, it is sealed. When the wall is finished, you plaster it over, making it smooth. A final, white, blank door. Then a high-status official comes. He has the seals. These are not wax. They are patterns, carved into wooden handles. He presses them into the wet white plaster. The mark of the royal necropolis. The mark of the god Anubis, the guardian. The official do not disturb sign. The no soliciting sign. For eternity. You gather your tools. You walk back up the long dark corridor into the blinding hot afternoon sun. The tomb is finished. The tomb is sealed. The labourer's job is done. Or so it seems. You are cold. The sun, the god Ra, vanished hours ago, and the desert has shed all its heat. The cold is a physical thing, a heavy cloak that seeps up from the stone you are sitting on. You are a medjay, a tomb guard. You are wrapped in a thick, coarse wool cloak, and you are sitting on a high rock, looking down into the valley. It is silent, profoundly silent, or rather, it is filled with the small, secret sounds of the night. You hear the hiss of the wind moving over the sand, the faint skitter of a beetle on the rocks, the occasional distant yipping cry of a desert fox. You are listening. Your entire job is to listen. You are not listening for groaning mummies or ancient curses. You are listening for the clink of a copper chisel on stone. You are listening for the soft thud of a rope being dropped. You are listening for a human whisper. Your job is, in a word, boredom. Profound, mind-numbing and absolute boredom. You are guarding the tombs of the greatest god kings who ever lived. They are buried with, you cannot even imagine, mountains of yellow metal, rooms full of inlaid furniture, enough grain and wine to feed a village for a year. And you are the one sitting here, with a wooden staff, getting paid in bread, beer and dried fish. It is a pretty good wage, all things considered. The state provides. But the hours are terrible. You sit here for hours. You walk your patrol. From this high rock to that cliff face and back, you see, in the distance, the small, flickering fire of another medjay guard. You are a network. You are all sitting in the dark, bored and cold. Your greatest enemy is not the tomb robber. It is sleep. If you are caught asleep, that is a severe offence. A very severe offence. You are not a soldier. You are a patrolman, a cop on the night beat. And you know the criminals. They are not some invading army from Libya. They are people you know. They are the stone carvers from the village. They are the plasterers. They are the masons. They are the males who built the tombs. They know the layout. They know where the shafts were filled with loose rock. They know where the walls are thin. They know exactly where the fresh, plastered-over doorway is. They are the gravediggers. They are the only ones who could possibly do this. And you are the only thing standing in their way. And you know, you have heard, that some medjay are flexible. That guard, on a cold, boring night, might find himself looking at a very large bag of grain, or even a few rings of yellow metal, in exchange for walking a different patrol, for not hearing a faint clink in the dark, for suddenly needing to inspect the other side of the valley for an hour. You are not that male. You are honest. You are also afraid. You are not afraid of ghosts. The car and the bar are for the priests to worry about. You are afraid of a gang of desperate armed males coming out of the dark, armed with their work tools, heavy mallets, sharp chisels. Your wooden staff is not much of a defence. Your job is not really to win a fight. Your job is to be a deterrent, to be a visible, bored, cold, and hopefully honest male sitting on a rock. You are a living scarecrow guarding a field of the most valuable crops in the world. You pull your wool cloak tighter. The wind is cold. You close your eyes, just for a second. And you listen. You are back in the village. Pardon me. You are a labourer, a stone cutter, and you are hungry. Not just ready for dinner, hungry. You are in a state of deep, gnawing physical need. Your stomach is a hollow, aching void. It is the 20th dynasty. The great pharaohs, the ones who built the grandest tombs, are long gone. The state, the bureaucracy that is supposed to feed you, is broken. It is failing. The grain shipments from the capital are late. They have not just been late for a few days. They have been late for months. The scribe in the village, the one who hands out the rations, he just shakes his head. The granaries, the massive mud brick domes, are empty. You are an elite artisan, a a servant in the place of truth, and you are starving. Your family is starving. You are sitting in your one-room mud-brick hovel. It is night. The room is cramped. It smells of dried river mud, of onions, and of the small goat bleating in the corner. A single smoky sesame oil lamp casts a weak, trembling light. Your wife, a female, is nursing your youngest family member, a very small male, and her face is thin, her cheeks hollow. Your older family members are silent, their hands resting in their laps. The silence in the room is heavy. It is the silence of hunger. You are angry. You are a skilled professional male. You have spent your entire life in the valley, breathing the dust, carving eternal homes for god kings. You have built their palaces, painted their walls, and sealed them in with mountains of food. You were there. You saw the jars of wine, the sacks of barley, the dried meat, the baskets of figs and dates. The irony is so bitter you can taste it. The dead are eating better than the living. The next morning you go to work, or you walk to the edge of the village, and then you sit down. You and your entire gang, the stone cutters, the plasterers, the painters, the haulers. You just sit in the dust. The overseer comes. He shouts. He tells you to get up. He tells you to get on the path. You do not move. You and the 100 other males, you begin to chant. It is not a prayer. It is not a work song. It is a single, desperate, angry phrase. We are hungry. We are hungry. The overseer is stunned. The scribes are frantic. This has never happened. You are striking. You are the first organized labor strike in recorded human history. You are not striking for more pay. You are not striking for better hours. You are not striking for safer conditions. You are striking to be fed. You are striking for the simple, basic, promised wage that you are owed. You are striking for bread. The priests from the nearby temple come. They panic. They do not want a mob of angry, skilled workers. A mob that knows all the state secrets. A mob that knows where every tomb is and what is in it. This is a security nightmare. They find some grain. They open a reserve granary. They give it to you. It is not enough. It is a temporary fix. It is a gesture to make you go back to work. You take the grain. You go back to work, for now. But the seed is planted. The contract is broken. The Pharaoh has failed to provide. The God King has not fed his people. And if the God King will not feed you, you will have to feed yourself. His pantry, the one you built, the one you sealed, is looking less like a sacred, untouchable tomb, and more like a very practical and very full warehouse. The lock on that warehouse is just a wall of loose stones. And you are a mason. The strike bought you a few weeks, but the grain is gone. The state is still broken. The hunger is back, worse this time. You are in your hovel. It is the new moon. The night is dark, so dark you cannot see your hand in front of your face. There is no Medjay patrol. You know this, because you paid him. You paid him with your last good copper chisel, a tool that is your livelihood. You paid him to be somewhere else, to be suddenly very interested in the far side of the valley. You're with your brother-in-law, a male who works as a water carrier. You are planning. You are not an evil male. You are not greedy. You are a father. You are a provider. And you are failing. But you have a secret. You have a memory. You are a professional gravedigger. You were one of the masons who built the tomb of the noble Mena. You worked on it for months. And you remember. You remember. A flaw. It was not a flaw, really. It was a feature. A vertical shaft designed for ventilation during the long, hot digging process. When the tomb was finished, it was sealed. But it was not sealed with solid bedrock. It was sealed with loose rock and rubble. It was just filled in, not walled up like the front door. You lean forward. You pick up a charred stick from the cold hearth. On the dirt floor, in the flickering lamplight, you draw a map. You draw the main entrance, the one the Medjay guard is supposed to be watching. Then, over here on the high cliff, you draw another mark. Here, you whisper. You do not need to speak loudly. Your brother-in-law, a male, leans in. His face is also thin, his eyes wide. It is just rocks, you whisper. We can clear it in an hour. You are not thinking about the treasure. You are not thinking about the golden mask or the gilded statues. You are thinking about the pantry. You were there when they stocked it. You remember. You know there are dozens of large sealed clay jars of wine. There are baskets of dried dates, figs, and bread. There are joints of dried salted meat. There are, most importantly, sacks of high-quality barley. And linen. Bundles and bundles of fine, clean white linen. The linen alone, that is currency. You can trade that tomorrow in the village for a live goat, for fresh vegetables, for oil for your lamp. The yellow metal is a bonus. It is a risk. It is hard to sell. But the food is a necessity. The linen is a necessity. You are not a tomb robber. You are a reallocator. You are taking back the wages the state has failed to pay you. You are collecting your back pay from the warehouse. You are just shopping at a store that owes you. The risk, of course, is immense. If you are caught by the vizier's men, the punishment is not a simple fine. You will be brought before the local court. Your name will be recorded. You will be sentenced to hard labour for the temple, a life of moving stones. Your family will be shamed. You will lose everything. You look at the thin face of the female nursing the small male. You look at the cold, empty hearth. The risk of not acting is also immense. You make the plan. You will take your work tools, your copper chisel, your wooden mallet, a long, strong rope made of papyrus fibre. You will not look like a robber. You will look like a mason going to check on a wall. You are terrified. Your stomach is a cold, tight knot. But underneath it, there is a fire. It is the fire of hunger. And it is stronger than your fear of the gods. It is stronger than your fear of the Pharaoh. You are in absolute total darkness. It is a physical weight. The air is dead. It is still, warm, and has not moved. In. You do not know. It smells of dry dust, faint, old perfume, and nothing. It is the smell of a sealed box. You are hanging from a rope in the ventilation shaft you remembered. Your brother-in-law is above you, holding the rope, braced on the cliff edge. You have been digging with your hands for an hour, pulling at the loose rocks, passing them up. Your lamp, a small clay bowl of oil, is tied to your belt. You light the flax wick. The small flame sputters. The shadows leap. You are in. You have dropped the last few feet. You are standing in the burial chamber. The first thing you see is stuff. The room is full. It is an antique shop. There is a gilded bed with legs carved like lion's feet. There are stools. There are chests painted with bright patterns. There are jars. Dozens and dozens of tall, sealed clay jars. Your brother-in-law slides down the rope. He is holding a large, empty sack. You do not speak. You do not need to. You move. You are not here to admire the craftsmanship. You are here to shop. You go to the jars first. You take your copper chisel and you tap the mud seal. It cracks. You break it open. You sniff. Wine. Strong, rich palm wine. You put your hand over the mouth of the jar and tip it, filling your own water skin. You move to the next jars. Grain. Sacks of it. You open the sack. You start scooping. You find baskets of dried dates, sticky and sweet. You find dried fish, wrapped in linen. This is it. This is life. You are stuffing your sack. You are moving fast. The fear is a hot wire in your chest. Every sound, the scrape of the grain, the clink of a jar, sounds like a thunderclap in the dead silence. Then you see it, the sarcophagus. It is a large wooden box covered in carvings and painted. It is sealed. You look at your brother-in-law. He shakes his head. Number. That is different. That is the body. That is the noble. That is the god. You do not touch the god. That is a line you will not cross. You are not here for him. You are here for his catering, his pantry. You look at the other items. You see a small golden statue of the noble. You pick it up. It is heavy. The yellow metal is soft. You put it in the sack. You see a gilded chair. It is too big. You break it. You put your foot on the arm and you push. The wood cracks. It is just wood. You are not a vandal. You are practical. You are harvesting. You break off the gilded armrests. They go in the sack. You find a large sealed chest. You pry it open with your chisel. It is full of linen. Stacks and stacks of fine, white, clean linen. This is the real treasure. This is better than the yellow metal. This is tradable. This is clean. This will feed your family for a month. You stuff the sack full. It is heavy. You hear a noise from above. A rock? A guard? You freeze. You hold your breath. Nothing. Just the wind. It is time to go. You tie the rope to the heavy sack. Your brother-in-law climbs out. He hauls. The sack scrapes against the stone. You climb the rope. Your hands raw. You are out. You are in the cold desert night. You pull the rope up. You quickly, quietly push the loose rocks back into the hole. You cover it with sand. You look around. Nothing. Just the dark cliffs. You lift the heavy sack. You do not run. You walk. You walk very calmly back to your village. You are a mason, coming home from a long shift. You will eat tomorrow. You are a priest. It is decades, perhaps 100 years later. The new kingdom is over. The state is gone. The country is split. The Valley of the Kings is no longer a secret, sacred place. It is an open secret. It is a quarry, a mine. The gravediggers are no longer just hungry artisans making a midnight run for food. They are organized gangs. They are sometimes the officials themselves. The system of protecting the tombs has completely collapsed. The tombs are open. They are being stripped. Your job as a priest of Amun is protection. It is disaster recovery. You are to protect the bodies of the ancient divine kings. You are, in effect, the manager of a failed bank, and you are trying to get the assets into a new, more secure vault. You and a team of other priests enter the valley. You are not sneaking. You are an official delegation. You go to the tomb of a great pharaoh. The sealed, plastered wall is a hole. It has been for years. You go inside. The air is stale, full of decay and old, dry dust. The tomb is a wreck. It looks like your artisan's hovel after the robbery. Broken pottery, overturned furniture, wood hacked to pieces to get at the gilding. This is a catastrophe, a religious disaster. But it is also an opportunity. Your job is to rescue the royal mummies. You find the sarcophagus. The massive stone lid has been pushed aside. You look inside. The mummy is there, but the wrappings are torn. The robbers were rough. You and your team carefully, reverently lift the body of the God King. You carry it out into a workshop tomb you have set up nearby. And here the rescue begins. You begin to unwrap him. You are not defiling him. You are inspecting him. You are checking for damage. You unwrap the linen, and you find what the ancient, hurried robbers missed. The small, heavy, carved stones and charms tucked into the wrappings. You collect these. You place them in a wooden box. You are not stealing. You are archiving. You are moving these sacred items to the temple treasury for safekeeping. This safekeeping will involve the temple's furnace, and the lost treasure will be melted down into plain ingots. These ingots will be used to pay the Medjay guards, to buy grain, to keep the temple, the very heart of your civilization, from collapsing. You are, in effect, recycling. The pharaoh has made his donation to the temple. You take the now bare mummy. You rewrap him. You wrap him in new, clean, but very plain linen. You find a simple, unadorned wooden box. You place the pharaoh inside. You take a brush, and on the lid you make a few simple, identifying painted patterns. Then you carry this box to another tomb. A secret one. A deep, hidden shaft. You lower the box down. You place him on the floor. He is not alone. There are other boxes, a dozen of them. You have rescued a whole dynasty of god kings. You have gathered them all up, stripped them of their treasure, and hidden them in a single, secret, unmarked hole. The mummy cache. You have saved them from the robbers. You have also finalized the robbery. You are the last and most efficient labourer of them all. You have dug up the pharaohs, and you are reburying them en masse. Your work is done. The valley is finally empty. The labourers of the Valley of Kings were not one group of people. They were a dynasty of professions, one following the other, all working the same patch of rock. First were the artisans, the state-sponsored labourers, the diggers and the plasterers, who came with soft copper and hard wood to carve palaces out of the rock. They were the masters of construction, the painters, the masons. They built the graves. Then came the hungry, the very same artisans, their sacred contract with the state broken by famine, who returned to the graves they had built. They did not come as vandals. They came as harvesters. They were the pragmatic labourers, collecting the food, the linen, and the metal they were owed. And finally came the priests, the official state-sanctioned labourers who came in the name of protection. They came to strip the last hidden assets, to melt down the treasure, to fund a failing state. And then they dug one final secret grave and put all the god kings in it together. The valley was never a place of eternal silence rest. It was a place of work. It was a construction site. It was a pantry. It was a mine. And finally, after 1,000 years of digging, it was empty. The labourers had at last finished the job. The Boatmen of the Nile. WWE have this idea of the Nile. We picture a long, serene blue ribbon flowing gently through a golden desert. We see the sacred barge of the pharaoh, a gilded swan-like ship floating peacefully on its surface, a symbol of divine order. We call it the gift of the Nile, a calm, life-giving spiritual force that birthed a civilization. But the truth is, the Nile was almost never serene, and it was rarely blue. For most of the year, it was a massive, brown, churning and muddy superhighway. It was the engine, the sewer, the pantry, and the single unifying logistical spine of the entire Egyptian state. The gift was not a gentle one. It was a brutal, dangerous, and demanding force, and the reality of living and working on it was a constant, grueling, and very wet business indeed, for countless individuals over millennia. We are just here to take a slow, immersive walk through a world that is long, long gone. We're going to push past the golden barges and the peaceful riverside temples. We're going to find the mud, the sweat, the calloused hands, and the ever-present danger of the real working river. We are looking for the boatmen of the Nile. You are wet. This is your permanent state of being, a constant clammy dampness that clings to your skin and your single rough linen kilt. You are standing in a papyrus marsh in the Nile Delta, the vast green waterlogged expanse where the river frays into countless channels before meeting the sea. The water is not clear and blue. It is thick, brown and lukewarm, the colour of weak tea. It comes up to your chest, swirling sluggishly around you, pushing at your legs with a gentle, oily pressure. The mud on the bottom is deep, a black sucking sludge that tries to pull your simple reed sandals off with every cautious step. You curl your toes to keep them on, feeling the thick, cool ooze squish between them, a feeling you have known your entire life. The air itself is heavy and humid, hanging thick and still between the towering reeds, which form a dense, green, claustrophobic forest. The air is not fresh, it smells intensely. It is the deep, rich, organic smell of decay, of wet earth constantly submerged, of rotting fish trapped in the shallows, and of methane gas bubbling up slowly from the mud below your feet. You can taste the smell. It coats your tongue. And the air is loud, not with human noise, but with the constant high-pitched whining cloud of insects. Biting flies, mosquitoes. They are everywhere. They swarm around your head, a pulsating dark halo. They land in your ears, your nose, crawling onto your eyelids, seeking the moisture from your eyes, the salt from your sweat, and the blood beneath your skin. You wave a hand futilely, but they are relentless, a permanent, itchy, distracting misery. You are not here for a pleasant swim or a scenic tour. You are a papyrus gatherer. You are harvesting the raw material for almost everything in Egyptian civilization. For paper, for baskets, for sandals, for ropes, and most importantly for this story, for boats. You are holding your tool. It is not an efficient steel saw. It is a small, curved, copper blade, hafted onto a short wooden handle. It is soft. It dulls quickly against the tough, fibrous plants. You wade slowly through the thick, brown water, pushing aside the tall, green stalks of the papyrus plants. They tower over you, 15 feet high, creating dense, claustrophobic walls on either side, blocking what little breeze there is. You find a thick, mature stalk, one suitable for harvesting. You reach down, plunging your arm deep into the murky, warm water, feeling blindly along the stalk until you feel the base of the plant, rooted deep in the unseen mud. You place your soft copper blade against it. You begin to saw. This is not a simple cut. It takes minutes of hard sawing work, your muscles straining underwater, all while you are treading water to maintain balance and being relentlessly attacked by the swarming flies. Your shoulders ache from the repetitive, difficult underwater motion. The copper blade, soft as it is, needs constant sharpening. This means a trip back to the nearest patch of dry land, often a half-hour pole away on your small skiff, to rub it vigorously on a flat, wet stone you carry for the purpose. The stalk finally comes free with a wet, tearing, sucking sound. It is heavy. It is waterlogged, filled with the river itself. You grab it, pulling its immense green length up out of the water, careful not to let the sharp, grassy edges slice your wet hands. You drag the heavy stalk through the swamp, the thick, fibrous plant fighting you, catching on other reeds, pulling you off balance into the sucking mud. You tie it with a length of rough cord to your small, leaky papyrus skiff, A tiny boat that is, itself, slowly dissolving under you, becoming heavier and soggier with each passing hour. This is not a safe job, not by any measure. You are not alone in this water. You freeze suddenly. You hear a splash, a loud one, to your left, perhaps 20 feet away. You do not move. You do not breathe. You stare intently at the ripples spreading across the brown surface. Is it just a large fish breaking the surface? Or is it a crocodile, disturbed by your presence? You wait, your heart hammering against your ribs, a dry pulse in your throat. The murky water hides everything. The crocodiles are masters of camouflage, silent hunters in their element. The water is their home. You are just a slow-moving, soft-skinned trespasser, a potential meal. You know males from your village who have gone into the marsh and not come out. Their skiffs sometimes found empty, sometimes just gone without a trace. You see nothing. The ripples fade. You let out a slow, shaky breath. But the fear is constant. It is a cold, hard stone in your stomach, a permanent companion in the oppressive, humid heat. Then, from the deeper water beyond the reed bed, you hear a deep, coughing, grunting huff. A hippopotamus. This is the real terror. You're not a snack for a hippo. You are simply an annoyance, a territorial obstacle. A hippo will overturn your boat or even bite it in half, just for being in its personal space. They move surprisingly fast in the water, like torpedoes of muscle and rage. You are harvesting the sacred material, the plant that will be turned into scrolls for the priests to record the eternal words of the gods. But the brutal reality of this task is that you are a hot, sweating, muddy, and terrified male, standing chest deep in smelly water, trying to cut a glorified weed with a soft knife, all while hoping you do not become a large, angry river cow's bad day. You pull the heavy, wet stalk towards your skiff. You have hundreds more to go. Your quota for the overseer is not yet met, and the sun is already climbing high, turning the marsh into a steam bath. You are a boat builder. But you are not a shipwright working in a dry dock with seasoned timber. You are, in effect, a master weaver, specializing in heavy-duty botanical construction. You are sitting on the muddy, sloping bank of the river, perhaps near the edge of the marsh. The air smells strongly of drying papyrus stalks, a grassy, slightly sweet scent, mingling with the ever-present aroma of river mud and low tide. In front of you is a mountain of the green-brown papyrus, stalks the gatherers just brought in, piled high and waiting to be transformed. Your job is to turn this pile of salad into a boat. This is not a high-status precision job requiring years of apprenticeship. This is a fast, cheap and functional craft, learned through observation and practice since you were a shorter male. You take the stalks. You lay them out on the ground, sorting them roughly by thickness and length. You begin to bundle them, overlapping them carefully, ensuring the thick cut ends form the sturdy stern and the feathery tops taper towards the bow. You are lashing them together. Your main tool is rope. Thick, rough papyrus fibre rope, abrasive to the touch. You are tying and pulling and cinching, using complex knots passed down through generations. Your hands are raw. The rough fibres of the rope cut into your palms constantly, even through the thick calluses you have built up over years. These calluses are as hard as wood, a testament to your trade. You have long since lost feeling in parts of your fingers from the constant friction. Your back is a single solid ache from stooping over all day, pulling and tightening the bundles. You use your foot, braced against the growing hull, to gain leverage, putting your entire body weight into pulling each loop of rope as tight as physically possible. Each knot must be perfect, locked tight. Each lashing must be incredibly taut. If you are lazy, if you're not slip even slightly, the boat will simply unbundle under stress. It will loosen, take on too much water, and eventually fall apart, likely in the middle of the river, potentially costing the owner his cargo or even his life. This is a job that severely punishes shortcuts and rewards meticulous, repetitive strength. You are a basket weaver for giants, and your basket has to float. You're not building a watertight hull in the modern sense. You're building a raft, a very, very well-shaped raft, designed to displace enough water to float despite being porous. You lash the primary bundles together, pulling them tight, forcing them into a long, curved, slipper-like shape characteristic of Nile skiffs. The bow and stern are curved high, sometimes dramatically so. This is not purely for aesthetic reasons, though it looks elegant. It serves a vital function. It allows the boat to be pulled up onto the muddy riverbank without the ends digging in, making landings and launchings much easier. It is pure functional design, perfected over millennia of trial and error on this specific river. The boat you are building will leak. You know this intimately. It is supposed to leak. That is part of its nature, an accepted characteristic of the material. A brand new papyrus skiff floats high on the water, buoyant and relatively dry inside. But as it is used day after day, the water slowly seeps into the tightly bound reeds. The boat gradually gets heavier. It becomes waterlogged. It floats lower and lower in the water. It becomes soggy, sluggish, and eventually unusable. This is not a vessel built for eternity, unlike the stone temples. This is a tool with a built-in expiration date. A good, well-made skiff, if its owner diligently pulls it out of the water every single night to allow it to partially dry, might last a few months, maybe a year, with constant minor repairs to the lashings, which you also perform. You are not building a proud family heirloom to be passed down. You are building the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a disposable razor or a cheap pair of shoes. It is cheap to make. It is fast to assemble. It works adequately for its intended purpose. And when it inevitably stops working, when it becomes too heavy and waterlogged to pole easily, you just abandon it on the riverbank to rot back into the mud, and you build another one. Your business model is based on planned obsolescence, enforced by the river itself. You are not working with mathematical calculations, blueprints, or complex measuring tools. You are working almost entirely by eye, by feel, with your hands, with your weight leveraged against the ropes, and with a deep, almost instinctive, ancestral knowledge of tension. You know precisely how tight to pull each rope. You know exactly where to place the bundles for the stronger structure. You know how to achieve the graceful, functional curve by feel alone. You finish lashing the last bundle, securing the final knot with a grunt, your muscles burning. You stand back, wiping the sweat from your eyes. It is a long, greenish-brown, curved object. It is a boat. It is a marvel of low-tech, brilliant engineering, perfectly adapted to its environment. It is also, essentially, a very well-tied, very large, biodegradable pool noodle. It will float. It will get the farmer across the river. It will carry the fisherman to his nets. And it will be completely, utterly saturated with water by this time next week. Your job is done. You reach for the next pile of stalks and start again. You're a taxi driver, or rather, you are the ancient equivalent, a common boatman, a ferryman. Your office is a small, muddy landing spot in a village beside the great river. The sun is just rising, already a hot white disk climbing above the eastern horizon, promising another day of scorching heat. The air is already sticky with humidity rising from the water and the irrigated fields. Your taxi is your own personal papyrus skiff, perhaps one like you saw being built just moments ago. You are standing in it near the stern. Your feet are wet. They are always wet. The bottom of the boat where you stand is a sodden, slowly dissolving reed pulp, squishing slightly under your weight. But it floats. For now. You are holding your primary tool, not an oar, not a sail, but a long, sturdy wooden pole, perhaps 12 feet long, with a forked end to prevent it sinking too deeply into the riverbed. You are not sailing. You are not rowing. You are poling. You stand facing the direction of travel. You shove the long wooden pole down through the brown, swirling water, down into the thick, invisible river mud below. You feel it thud as it hits the firmer bottom beneath the silt. You plant your feet firmly on the soggy reeds of the boat's floor. You put your shoulder against the top of the pole. You lean. You put your entire straining body weight into it, pushing the pole backwards. The boat scrapes forward through the water. A few feet, maybe 6 or 7, if the current is not too strong. You pull the pole back out of the mud. Schloop. It makes a thick sucking sound as the riverbed releases it, splattering your legs with cold mud. You quickly walk back to the stern of the small boat, carrying the heavy, wet pole. You plant the pole again in the mud ahead of you. Thud. You lean. Grunt. You push. This is your life. Schloop. Thud. Grunt. Push. Over and over and over. You are moving your boat, often against the relentless current, by pushing against the bottom of the river itself. Your shoulders and back are rock hard, knotted with muscle from this single, repetitive, grinding motion you perform thousands of times a day. Your passengers are rarely helpful. Today it is a female from the village, going to the market on the opposite bank. She carries a large woven basket containing several live, squawking chickens, adding their noise to the river sounds. Beside her sits a male, going to the next village, who seems to have already enjoyed a significant portion of his daily beer ration, judging by his loud voice and unsteady posture. They are arguing about the price of onions. They are shifting their weight constantly, making the unstable skiff rock precariously. You ignore them, focusing only on your poling and keeping the leaky, soggy slipper boat upright. A sudden shift in weight could easily capsize this fragile vessel, and you know your passengers cannot swim any better than you can. And then there are the other commuters, the non-paying, far more dangerous ones. You freeze mid-push. You see them, on the surface of the murky water, about 50 feet away, near the reed beds lining the bank. 2 small, dark, unmoving bumps, just sitting there, almost invisible against the brown water. You do not move. You do not splash. You know exactly what that is. A crocodile. A large one, judging by the distance between the eyes. It is watching you, waiting, assessing. Your passengers fall silent, their arguments forgotten. You adjust your poling, quietly. You do not splash. You pole very, very gently, angling your skiff away from the 2 bumps, creating more distance, pushing towards the centre of the river. You are a soft, slow-moving meal, packaged in a very easy-to-open fibre-based container. The fear is a cold, hard stone in your stomach, a familiar clenching sensation. But the crocodiles, while terrifying, are not the real danger. You hear it, a sudden eruption from a dense patch of reeds near the bank ahead. A deep, coughing, explosive grunt. A hippopotamus. Your blood runs cold. A hippo is not the slow, fat, comical animal often depicted. It is the most dangerous animal on the river. It is fiercely territorial. It is incredibly aggressive. And it is huge. A 3-ton wall of muscle and teeth. A hippo will bite your boat, not necessarily to eat you, though they have been known to attack humans, but just to destroy the perceived threat. It will snap your papyrus skiff in half, like a dry twig, just for the crime of being in its path. You pole. You pole as fast as you possibly can, digging deep into the mud, your muscles screaming. You are breathing hard, sweat stinging your eyes. Your passengers are, for once, completely silent, their faces pale, gripping the sides of the boat. You steer towards the centre of the river, away from the bank where the hippo surfaced. You are the ancient equivalent of an Uber driver. Your car is actively dissolving beneath you. Your passengers are loud and distracting. And the pedestrians are 15-foot long, armoured reptiles, while the other cars are 3-ton, angry river tanks capable of crushing you instantly. This is not a gift. This is a brutal, terrifying daily commute. You finally reach the muddy bank on the other side. The female haggles briefly, then gives you a small copper ring, your payment. You take it. You turn your soggy boat around. You have to go back across. You are a boat builder, but you are not sitting on a muddy bank. You are a carpenter, a high-status artisan, and you are building with wood. You work in a state-run shipyard, a noisy, dusty, sprawling place filled with the smell of sawdust, hot pitch, and the sharp scent of imported cedar. Your problem is not an overabundance of material, but a critical lack of it. Egypt is a land of mud and reeds. It has almost no good, long, straight timber. You use some local acacia, a hard, thorny wood that grows in short, twisted, irregular pieces. But for the great ships, the state barges, the sacred vessels, you use imported wood. Cedar from Lebanon, ebony from Nubia. These are materials worth more than metal. You are working on a jigsaw puzzle ship. Your job is not to lay a long keel and build a frame in the way of later shipwrights. Your job is to fit these irregular, precious, and often short planks together, edge to edge. You are a master of joinery. You carve complex mortise and tenon joints. You lock the planks together with wooden dowels. And then, in a technique that goes back millennia, you stitch the hull together. You drill holes along the edges of the planks and pass thick papyrus fibre ropes through them, lashing the planks to each other from the inside, pulling them incredibly taut. You are part carpenter, part tailor, sewing a boat together. Then comes the caulking. You and your team, males with wooden mallets and chisels, force reeds and papyrus fibres into every single seam, every gap between the planks. Then you coat the entire hull, inside and out, with hot black bubbling pitch. The smoke stings your eyes. The smell is acrid and overpowering. You are building a wooden, flat-bottomed barge, a floating barn. But it is a masterpiece of adaptation. It is a ship built by a civilization that has no business building large, wooden ships, yet it must. It is a testament to ingenuity born of sheer absolute necessity. It is a puzzle, and if you get one piece wrong, the whole thing will come apart on the river. You are a boatman, but you are not your own boss. You do not own your vessel. You are state property, conscripted for service. You are a sailor on a state-run grain barge. Your ship is enormous compared to the papyrus skiffs. It is one of the wooden jigsaw puzzle ships you just saw being built, perhaps 100 feet long. It is a wide, flat-bottomed, floating barn, designed purely for cargo capacity. The deck is not empty. It is a mountain, a literal mountain of golden, threshed barley. The grain is not neatly packed in sacks or stored in jars. It is loose. They have simply piled it onto the flat deck, forming a huge, shifting golden dune contained by low wooden sideboards. You estimate there are 1,000 tons of it. You are, in effect, sailing a granary down the river. Your job on this leg of the journey is monotony. You are going with the current. You are sailing north, downstream, from the vast, green, fertile farms of Upper Egypt near the source, towards the massive stone temple complexes and cities like Thebes. The boat moves steadily. It is slow, heavy, and ponderous, carried along by the river's relentless flow. You are not needed for propulsion, only for steering. You are one of perhaps 10 males assigned to the steering oar. Not really an oar, but a single massive tree trunk, roughly carved into the shape of a rudder, mounted at the stern. It takes the combined strength of your team to move it. A foreman stands above you, chanting the rhythm to coordinate your efforts. Pull, ha, pull, ha. You and the team, leaning together, pull on the thick ropes attached to the tiller. The massive oar moves, just a few inches. The ship, responding sluggishly, slowly corrects its course, avoiding a shallow patch or following the curve of the river. This is your entire day, hour after hour. Pull, ha. Your muscles burn with the strain. Your hands are calloused from the ropes. You sleep on the deck. There are no cabins. You simply roll out your reed mat directly on the pile of grain. It is soft, but it shifts, and it is alive. You feel the scratching and scurrying of rats and mice beneath you, feasting on the mountain. The air is thick with grain dust. It is a fine, yellow, itchy powder that gets into everything. It is in your eyes, making them red and sore. It is in your nose, making you sneeze constantly. It is in your throat, making you cough, a dry, hacking, dusty cough. You eat your lunch, a hard, dry barley cake provided as rations, and it tastes inevitably like more barley. The dust coats your skin, mixing with your sweat to form a gritty paste that you can feel in your armpits and behind your knees. You are covered in tiny, itching red bites from the weevils and other insects that live in the grain. And you are watched constantly. Under a small linen awning erected in the stern for shade sits a scribe. He is not steering. He is not pulling ropes. He is sitting, cross-legged, with his palette and his papyrus. He is watching and counting. He has his papyrus sheet spread before him. He has his palette of black and red ink. He is the real captain of this vessel. He is the accountant. His sole job is to make sure that the exact amount of grain that was loaded onto the barge at the start of the journey is the exact amount that is unloaded at the destination. He measures the height of the grain pile several times a day. He watches the crew constantly. You are sailing on a floating mountain of food. You are surrounded by food enough to feed a city, and you are strictly forbidden from touching it. Stealing even a single handful of grain, a mouthful of the pharaoh's barley, is a serious crime, punishable by beatings or worse. You are essentially a delivery driver in a truck made entirely of sandwiches, and you are forbidden from taking even a crumb. The journey north takes weeks. You pull your oar when needed. You breathe the inescapable dust. You sleep on the shifting, itching, crawling grain. You are watched constantly by the scribe. It is the most boring, tedious, repetitive, and itchy job on the Nile. And then, you finally arrive at Thebes. The great temple looms. You maneuver the heavy barge towards the stone quay. You unload. Teams of labourers arrive with baskets, swarming over the barge, scooping up the grain, carrying it away to the temple granaries. The mountain of grain shrinks, disappears. The barge floats high in the water again. And now, you have to go back. You have to go south. you have to go against the current. This is the real work. This is where the monotony ends and the grueling, back-breaking labour begins. You raise the sail. A single, huge, square linen sail mounted on a wooden mast. The north wind, the prevailing wind that blows southwards up the Nile Valley, conveniently opposing the current, catches it. The boat begins to move, slowly fighting its way upstream. This is the good part. You sit, you mend ropes, you watch the banks glide by. But what happens if the wind dies? The wind inevitably dies. The sail goes slack. The boat loses momentum, stops, and then begins to drift backwards, pushed relentlessly downstream by the powerful current you rode north so easily. The foreman shouts. A new command, one you dread. You and 50 other males from the crew, you jump off the boat into the shallow, murky water near the bank. You splash through the mud until you reach the firmer ground of the river bank itself. This is the towpath. Not a paved road, but a muddy, rocky, root-strewn track. A thick, heavy papyrus rope is thrown to you from the deck. You grab it. You put the rough loop over your shoulder. You lean forward, digging your heels into the mud. You and the 50 other males strung out along the rope like beads on a string. You become mules. You are a human engine. You are towing the massive, empty wooden barge by hand, step by painful step, against the relentless current. Your feet slip and slide in the thick, sucking river mud. You stumble on unseen rocks. The sun beats down mercilessly on your back. The rough papyrus rope cuts deeply into the skin on your shoulder, leaving a raw, red burn. You pull. You sweat. Your world shrinks to the back of the male straining in front of you. The rhythmic grunts of effort, the splash of feet, the foreman's shouted chant, and the constant burning fire in your legs and back. This is the other half of the job. This is the brutal reality of sailing south on the Nile. It is weeks of back-breaking towings, punctuated by occasional, blessed hours of wind. You arrive back in Upper Egypt, exhausted, your shoulder a raw wound, just in time to load another mountain of grain and begin the entire itchy, monotonous process all over again. You are on the river again, but you are not hauling grain today. You are a pilot, a master of the river's treacherous ways. You are, at this specific moment, perhaps the most important, and unquestionably the most terrified male in all of Egypt. You are standing precariously on the very bow of a thing. It defies easy description. It is not a single boat. It is a floating, artificial island. It consists of 2, or possibly even 3, of the largest, sturdiest wooden state barges available, lashed together side by side with massive ropes to create a single, incredibly wide, floating platform. And on this platform, lying flat, resting carefully on shaped wooden supports, is an obelisk. It is a single, monolithic needle of Aswan red granite. It is easily 100 feet long. It weighs 300 tons, maybe more. It is a skyscraper lying on its side, afloat on the Nile. It represents years of painstaking work by 1,000 quarrymen back in the southern quarries. It is a priceless symbol of the pharaoh's power and connection to the sun god. It is utterly irreplaceable. And getting it safely to the Temple Kai in Thebes is your problem. Your sole, terrifying responsibility. You are the one who knows the river, the one who can read the subtle patterns on its surface. Your barge, this colossal catamaran, is riding dangerously low in the water. You look over the side. The churning, brown, silt-laden river water is inches, just inches, from the edge of the wooden deck. Any significant wave, any unexpected list, could swamp it. The entire structure is moving downstream, with a terrifying, ponderous, slow, seemingly unstoppable momentum. Once this mass is in motion, changing its direction is like trying to nudge a mountain. You are not steering in the conventional sense. You are navigating. You are the eyes of this blind beast. You are the ancient equivalent of a harbour pilot for a supertanker, with no charts and no engine. You are standing right at the front, balancing carefully, holding a long wooden sounding pole. Your only job is to constantly find the bottom, to know the depth of the water directly ahead. You plunge the pole down into the brown, murky water. Thud. It hits the riverbed. You feel the resistance. You instantly know the depth from the markings on the pole and long experience. You shout. Your voice must carry over the groaning of the timbers and the sound of the water. You are not shouting to a single steersman holding a tiller. You are shouting complex commands to a team of 20 sweating males, wrestling with 4 giant oar-like rudders mounted at the stern of the lashed-together barges. They hear your shout. They respond instantly, pulling or pushing in unison on the thick wooden tillers. They strain against the immense pressure of the water. The entire massive platform ship thinks about turning. It slowly, very slowly, veers a few feet to the left, or perhaps holds its course against the sideways push of the current. Your enemy is not crocodiles today. Your enemy is invisible mud, sandbanks, shallows. The Nile is not a deep, clear, predictable channel. It is a shallow, constantly shifting muddy maze. The flood last season carved new channels and deposited new banks of silt. The mental map you memorized last year is now dangerously wrong. You are navigating entirely in real time, purely by feel, interpreting the river's subtle signs and the feedback from your pole. If you make a single mistake, if your calculation of the depth is off by even a foot, if you react a second too late, this 300-ton, priceless, irreplaceable monument will run aground. It will hit the unseen mud bank, and it will stop, dead. And once stopped, with that immense weight settled into the soft riverbed, it will likely never move again. It will be stuck, forever. It will become a monument, not to the Pharaoh's glory, but to you, to your one single catastrophic bad call. The shame would be unbearable, the punishment unthinkable. The level of stress is a physical weight on your chest. It is a hot, tight iron band constricting your breathing. Your hands, gripping the sounding pole, are slick with sweat, despite the dryness of the air. You do not blink. You scan the water ahead for telltale ripples, for changes in colour, for any sign of shallows. You are the captain of the most expensive, most oversized, and most unsteerable single item in the world. No pressure at all. You plunge the pole again into the brown water. Thud. The bottom is shallower than expected. You scream. You scream the warning at the top of your lungs, praying the steersman react in time. Pull. Pull hard. Pull. You feel the massive barge groan, the timbers straining, as it slowly, agonizingly veers, just missing the mud. You almost stop breathing. You have been doing this for 12 hours. You are a soldier, but you are not marching across desert sands today. You are a marine, an infantryman being transported by water. You are on a troop transport. It is a long, sleek, wooden state ship, built for speed rather than cargo, and it is incredibly cramped. You are sitting on a hard, wooden deck plank, your rough leather shield propped against your legs. Your knees are jammed uncomfortably against the back of the male soldier sitting directly in front of you. Your shoulders are pressed tightly against the sweaty bodies of the males on either side. There are 200 of you packed onto the open deck of this boat. You cannot move. You cannot stand up. You just sit, hour after hour, under the blazing sun. The brutal reality that defines this experience is the smell. It is overwhelming. It is the inescapable stench of 200 unwashed males, crammed together in a small, confined, wooden box, floating under a white-hot Egyptian sun. It is the thick, sour smell of stale sweat. It is the pungent aroma of dried fish, onions, and garlic, the standard military rations, emanating from breath and bodies. And permeating everything is the foul smell of the open latrine bucket, placed discreetly, but not discreetly enough, in the stern. It is truly awful, a constant assault on your senses. You try to breathe through your mouth, but the taste is just as bad. You are sailing south, upriver, towards Nubia. Your unit is part of an expeditionary force. Your job, officially, is to project the Pharaoh's power, perhaps to quell unrest in a distant region, or simply to be a visible military presence. You are an instrument of the state. But first, you have to get there. The journey against the current, relying on sail and sometimes towing, takes weeks. You sit. You are bored. Your muscles ache from the enforced inactivity. You are tense, anticipating whatever awaits you in the south. You check the bronze tip of your spear for the 10th time. You check the leather straps on your large cowhide shield again. There is nothing else to do but wait and endure. The male sitting shoulder to shoulder next to you is coughing, a dry, hacking, persistent cough that shakes his whole body. He is obviously sick. You try to press yourself away from him, to create even an inch of space, but there is nowhere to go. You are trapped in this tightly packed mass of humanity. This is not a glorious conquering army on the move. This is a floating petri dish, a perfect environment for sickness to spread like wildfire through the ranks. You can feel the heat from his body. And then, as the river widens in certain stretches, becoming more like a lake, the wind picks up. The boat, designed to be sleek and fast, begins to rock significantly, not just gently flowing with the current. It is pitching back and forth, rolling side to side in the choppy water. You are not a sailor. You are a farmer. You were conscripted from your small village in the delta just a few months ago. You have never been on a boat this big, this far from land, moving this fast. Your stomach lurches with the motion. You feel a cold sweat break out on your forehead. You are seasick, violently seasick. On a river, you lean desperately over the low wooden side of the boat. You are unwell. The fearsome, conquering warrior of the Pharaoh is green. He is sweating. He is utterly miserable, focusing only on not embarrassing himself further. The male next to you coughs again, seemingly oblivious. The male in front of you groans and leans over the side himself. This is not a glorious military procession filled with heroic purpose. This is a cramped, smelly, floating barracks. And almost everyone on board is either bored out of their minds, miserably sick, or, most likely, both. You just want to get off. You just want to stand on solid land again. Any land. Even the hostile land you are being sent to pacify seems preferable to another week trapped on this wretched boat. You are a farmer, and your entire world is gone. It has completely disappeared beneath the water. You are sitting on a small, muddy, temporary island, a patch of naturally higher ground, or perhaps a section of raised dike. Your village, your simple mud brick house, the place you were born, your carefully tended barley fields, your small vegetable garden. It is all gone. It is all under 6 feet of silent brown, swirling water. This is the Akhet, the inundation, the annual flood of the Nile. This is the gift that makes life possible in this desert land. And it is also a brutal, disruptive, and dangerous gift. It is a seasonal apocalypse. You are, for these few months, a refugee. You are displaced. You are living in a temporary shelter, a flimsy hut made of bent reeds plastered with mud, constructed hastily on this one tiny patch of high ground. You are not alone. Your family is crammed in here with you. Your neighbours have built similar shelters nearby. And crucially, your animals are here too. Your precious cattle, your few goats, your noisy chickens. You are all crammed together, humans and livestock, on this one small, crowded, muddy patch of not water, waiting for the flood to recede. The smell is overwhelming. It is the smell of wet mud, constantly underfoot, the smell of wet animals, confined in close quarters, the smell of wet everything, wet reeds, wet clothes that never fully dry, wet cooking fires struggling to stay lit. It is the rich, thick, heavy smell of silt suspended in the water, and the pervasive aroma of decay as vegetation drowns and decomposes. And you wait. This is the season of waiting. You cannot do anything productive in the traditional sense. You cannot plant, you cannot plough, you cannot farm. The land, your entire livelihood, is gone, submerged beneath the brown floodwaters. Your only connection to the wider world during this time, your only means of transportation, is your boat, your small, leaky, perpetually soggy papyrus skiff. It is not just a tool anymore. It is your legs. It is your car. It is your only way to move beyond the confines of your tiny island. You become a boatman purely by necessity. You carefully load your family into the unstable skiff. You take up the long pole. You push off from the muddy shore. You pole slowly through the brown water, directly over the spots where your barley field used to be, now just an indistinct part of a vast, temporary lake. You go to visit your cousin, who is similarly marooned on his own tiny muddy island a mile away. You fish in the floodwaters, hoping to supplement your dwindling grain stores. You live on and by the water. But the floodwater is dangerous. It is full of displaced things seeking refuge just like you. Snakes, driven from their holes, swim looking for dry ground, and sometimes find your flimsy hut. Scorpions cling to floating debris. And the crocodiles, they are everywhere now, their hunting grounds vastly expanded. They swim silently where your front door used to be, posing a constant threat to anyone near the water's edge, or foolish enough to fall out of a boat. You wait for weeks. Weeks turn into months. You watch the level of the water obsessively. You check the marks you made on a prominent rock or tree trunk. The boredom is immense, a heavy, damp blanket. And then, one day, you take your pole. You are out in your boat, checking your fishing nets. You push the pole down into the brown water, and it thuds. It sticks firmly in mud, rich, thick, new, black, incredibly fertile mud. The water is receding. The land is reappearing. The gift of the flood has been delivered, leaving behind a fresh layer of life-giving silt. The brutal, scary, boring, and smelly wait is finally over. The brown sea is gone. And it has left behind life, potential, the promise of a new harvest. It is time to get off your boat. It is time to get back to work, rebuilding your mud brick house, which has dissolved back into the earth, replanting your fields in the rejuvenated soil. The boatman's life recedes as the farmer's life returns. Until next year, when the waters rise, and you become a boatman once more. The boatmen of the Nile were everyone. They were not a single class, a distinct profession easily separated from the rest of society. They were the farmer, forced by the rhythm of the river itself to become a sailor each year when the world became water. They were the soldier, usually marching on land, but rendered sick and cramped when packed into floating barracks for riverine campaigns. They were the highly specialized pilots, terrified into perfect focus by the immense responsibility of guiding a single priceless stone monument down the treacherous waterway. They were the carpenter, solving an impossible puzzle, stitching together ships from inadequate scraps of wood using sheer ingenuity. They were the papyrus cutter, braving crocodiles and hippos in the marshes, and the boat weaver, turning those reeds into disposable essential vessels. The Nile was not simply a passive gift. It was an active force. It was a tyrant during the flood, a demanding taskmaster during low water. It was the ultimate provider, delivering fertile silt and serving as the primary highway for all commerce, communication, and control. It was the central artery that pushed life and mandated work through the entire elongated kingdom, from the southern cataracts to the northern delta. The civilization was not built primarily on stone, though the stone monuments remain. It was built on the river's mud. It did not move efficiently on wheels. The wheel was barely used for transport. It moved on water. The brutal, fundamental reality is that every single Egyptian, from the pharaoh in his ceremonial barge to the poorest farmer poling his dissolving skiff, was, in some essential way, a boatman, utterly dependent on and shaped by the great, brown, dangerous, life-giving river.